So if you've been on this channel for a while, you might remember a video I posted about an Avatar theory. In it, I mentioned that during exam periods, I tend to pick a series to binge watch. In November of 2021, I wrote my A-level exams, and maybe you're wondering if I binged a series. No, I did not. I binged over 7 different series. I'd list them all here, but this video is long enough. 2 of the 3 subjects I took were maths and further maths. I like maths, don't misunderstand me, but doing 4 or more past papers a day can drain you, which is why I would often watch a movie or series as I practiced maths. And that's when I decided to watch Ben 10. I remember I'd always wanted to watch Alien Force from start to finish, and at some point before last year I'd even started doing so, but eventually decided not to watch it and never found the time to start it again. Okay, last year I didn't have the time, but I acted like I did and binged Ben 10 Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, or as some people say, UAF, the subject of today's video. The classic Ben 10 series will always hold a special place in my heart. I have fond memories of watching the show with my sisters in the afternoon at my grandparents' house when I was a child, but I'd always remember preferring the series where they were aged up. In case you don't know, Ben 10 is a Cartoon Network franchise with several sequels and reboots. Ben 10 ran from 2005 to 2008 and focused on a 10-year-old Ben on a road trip with his cousin Gwen and their grandpa Max. He finds a watch called the Omnitrix that attaches itself to him and gives him the ability to transform into 10 different aliens with special abilities. Ben 10 Alien Force aired from 2008 until 2010 and is set 5 years after the original series' end. This series was then followed by Ben 10 Ultimate Alien from 2010 to 2012. After this came Ben 10 Omniverse from 2012 to 2014 and then Ben 10 2016. This one didn't have a special name attached to it. I'd wanted my exam binge to include the classic Ben 10 series, but 10-year-old Ben was a little too irritating, and for the most part there wasn't an overarching plot. I'd also considered watching past Ultimate Alien, but have you seen the character designs for Omniverse?
What is the biggest glow down in cinematic history? I'll go first. From McSteamy to Mick get the out of my house.
Even other than the designs, I know there's something about Ben having to rebuild the whole universe again, and that's why certain characters look the way they do, and I don't know if I'd have enjoyed that concept that much. I'll often refer to Ben 10 2005 as the original series or the classic series, Alien Force as A-Force, mainly because I don't want to keep saying AF, and Ultimate Alien as UA, and refer to them both collectively as the Alien series. Also, anytime I mention the team, I'm referring to the 3 main characters, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin. For this video, I'll go through Ben 10 Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, explaining major characters and events. There is some stuff from the original Ben 10 series that I might need to quickly explain to understand some A-Force and UA stuff, but I won't be doing a full in-depth recap of the original series. Fair warning, while I was inspired by Mike's Mike and Jenny Nicholson, this is Ben 10, not Pretty Little Liars, or a show with drama and reveals and plot twists. There isn't always some elaborate plot that needs to be understood, characters aren't dying left and right, and there isn't some overarching mystery that needs to be explained. One of the biggest arcs of Alien Force is resolved with the power of friendship, and I love that I'm not making that up. While I'll go through the series episode by episode, not every episode will get a full summary just because it's a lot of filler and I don't always have that much to say about certain episodes even if they aren't filler. I've made these files for each character for the most part. I'll use my own file here as an example. As you can see, I'll include what kind of character this is at the top. Other characters include main character, recurring character, villain, and Saturday morning villain. These are villains who are often there for a quick fight but aren't really that threatening, kind of like the villains from a Saturday morning cartoon. Back to my file. I'll obviously include the characters' names, but sometimes a character might have more than 2 names listed. I'll probably use those names interchangeably. It happens most with villains who have like their villain name and then their real name, like Darkstar or Charmcaster. Category refers to how I personally feel about this character or what I file this character as in my mind. Some characters will have both main info and additional info cards. As we learn more about characters, I'll add to these cards. Other characters will only have additional info and some won't have anything except their picture and their name. These are FYI characters. I only made files for some of them so that you can know their names because I kept forgetting their names while writing the script. Also, there are event files. For example, the Gwevin file. As we see a Gwevin event, we'll add to the Gwevin event file. Also, while we're on the Gwevin file, I'll add every time they save each other. They do that a lot, and I'm not going to call it out each time. Other event files include top tier quality content, CEJ, and Nightmare Fuel. Lastly, I rant a lot in this video, so I'll use this picture whenever I do. Sometimes I'll ask a lot of questions about the world building and lore of the Ben 10 world, so I'll use this picture because that's what I need to tell myself so that these questions don't keep me up at night. Finally, sometimes I'll critique the writing choices and maybe offer a different approach to an episode. I'm gonna call it fan fiction and use this picture when I do so, but I don't mean fan fiction in a creepy shipping kind of way. There won't be any Kevin Ben discussions, although I'm playing. Ben doesn't deserve Kevin. One last thing I want to note about this video is the fact that while I talk about stuff I liked and did not like, there's some stuff that's just kind of low-hanging fruit, I guess. Like it's not worth complaining about each time. The show has some very cringy lines, but I can't hate on all of them because it's a kid's show from the early 2010s. Also, there are some weird lingering shots from time to time where we really should move on to the next scene, and I don't think they handle interruptions well. Like, there was no overlap in the voices during arguments. I don't know if there's a specific reason for this. Other kids' shows have had the same issue. However, there will be times where I dislike something and think it could have been handled better, but I won't brush it off as, oh, it's just a kids' show because I don't feel like it's a valid excuse in that scenario. Finally, just a disclaimer that a lot of this video will be in my opinion. I know many people think that the classic series was the peak of the Ben 10 franchise, and I don't agree. And we can leave it at that. I'm not saying that the classic series was bad, I just think it's better in my memory because of watching it with my sisters, but if I watched it for the first time today, I wouldn't love it. You don't need to have watched or rewatched any of the Ben 10 series to watch this video, but I'll be spoiling basically everything, so if you don't want spoilers, you've been warned. I'll give you the basic understanding of Ben 10 in case you didn't know, but also remember that these shows kind of stand alone. Like, I just started watching from Alien Force without watching every episode of the classic series. These series reference each other, but you really could just start watching from A-Force and only need a basic understanding of the original series. Also, I might leave some stuff out in this mini recap because, to be honest, there's not much to say about certain characters or events. Later in the video, I might just say, this is Jane. They found her in the classic series, or they know her from the classic series. In the classic series, the three main characters are Ben, his cousin Gwen, and their grandpa Max. Max lives in a trailer called the Rust Bucket. Max is a plumber, essentially a secret agent who deals with alien activity on and off Earth. Gwen and Ben find this out at some point during the show. Azimuth is a grey matter, or of the Galvan, a race of aliens, and is the creator of the Omnitrix. We should also talk about Kevin Levin from the original. In the classic series, he and Ben met and became friends, but he was a bad influence. He can absorb energy and dispense it at will, and absorbs the energy from Ben's watch, turning into this and getting trapped in the Null Void, an intergalactic prison. But he does come back from time to time in the series as a recurring villain. Other recurring villains include Dr. Animo, Zombozo, Hex, his niece Charmcaster, and Vilgax. Vilgax is the most powerful villain from the original. He's a warlord, conqueror of worlds, and desperately wants the Omnitrix to become more powerful. But I always used to think of him as the guy in the tank. I also have no idea how to bring this up naturally, but they live in a town called Bellwood. I don't know what state it's in. I made this classic Ben 10 aliens pyramid where I ranked them as best I could. A lot of this is just from memory, mind you. I had to look up some alien names. The fish is called Repjaws. Why am I only learning about this now? Also, accelerate is spelled XLR8. The rage that came over me when I found that out is indescribable. It's important to note that Ghost Freak isn't ranked. At some point in the original series, he became sentient and began controlling Ben in an episode called Ghosted, before leaving the Omnitrix and being replaced by Cannonbolt, who is superior in every way, shape, and form. All the aliens you see here will appear throughout the course of the Alien series, so we'll cross them off as we go through the episodes. The aliens will appear either as independent characters or because Ben transforms into them. At least I'm fairly certain all of them come back. I can't for the life of me remember seeing Stinkfly again, and if I made this pyramid for nothing, it's going to haunt me. Before we get to season 1, let's quickly go through 9 of the 10 main aliens. I'll save Alien X for later in the video. We're going to meet other new aliens later on, and I'll talk about those aliens when we see them. I'm also only going to tell you their nicknames and not their actual alien names. From worst to best, we have Humongousaur. Ben uses him quite often, but I find him a little boring just because he's just big. What's that? He has a second form? Oh wait, it's just slightly bigger. Brainstorm isn't often that smart, he just uses unnecessarily big words. Part of being intelligent is knowing what vocabulary to use at which time. Half the time he uses big words and this kind of wastes time, but he can also shoot lightning bolts from his brain. Chromostone's powers are a little confusing to me, so we're just gonna call them rainbow light beams. Spider Monkey's main ability is that he's agile and he can shoot webs from his tail. Swamp Fire is pyrokinetic but is also a plant and can lengthen his limbs at will. He can also regenerate limbs after they've been cut off. Jetray can fly quite fast and shoot lasers from his eyes and his tail. Goop is kind of an acid. He can fit into any mold, slip through cracks, and disintegrate materials. I'm not entirely sure how he regulates his acidity. Sometimes he touches materials and people and they don't get burnt. My point is that he's not always acidic. He also needs this thing that floats above him, an anti-gravity device. If it's turned off, he becomes a liquid and can't move. My favorite of the main aliens is Big Chill, who, funny enough, is similar to Ghost Freak, although he doesn't possess people. He can manipulate ice, become invisible and intangible, can fly, and his design is pretty cool. The first two episodes are Ben 10 Returns Part 1 and 2. So in the prologue of episode 1, we see the two main villains for the next two seasons, the DNA aliens and the hybrids, but I'll talk about them a little later on. The DNA aliens and the hybrids appear throughout season 1 and 2 with their little shenanigans and small plots that eventually lead to their master plan, but I won't explain what their whole plan is until the season 2 finale, just because in between they're always just kind of building something or preparing to build something. For now, I just want to mention Max Tennyson. Technically, he's spoken about in this scene and not actually in it. Personally, Max is one of those characters that leaves an ugly aftertaste in my mouth, just because sometimes he's a cool mentor, but other times he gives questionable advice. I'll give more examples of this later. We then open on a football match where we have these two. I will not tell you their names, I don't care about them, hence their category. And finally, we have our titular character, Ben. Ben is Ben. It's really its own category. I can't say I like him because he irritates me and messes things up and has this enormous ego that he doesn't really grow out of, but I also can't call him bad because for the most part he pulls through when it really matters. He definitely did mature from the original, not just in his looks but also in his personality, and I guess compared to his 10-year-old self, he's a lot less irritating and self-absorbed, but he's still kind of the same. So yeah, it's a Ben category, which, trust me, I will address throughout the series. Also, the show takes place 5 years after the original series, but it started airing almost immediately after the original. Like, for most of my childhood, I was under the impression that there was like a 5-year period of just no Ben 10, but anyway. I think it's strange to see Ben playing goalkeeper here. With his pride, I would have thought he'd be striker or whatever Jamie Tart is. We next meet Julie, who's only in this episode and episode 7 from this season. Julie's okay. I really wish I could say more about her, but we're not really given more to her. Something I've noticed with older cartoons is how, for the most part, it was like, our audience is male, our audience is female, and quite strictly so. In the sense that for male-targeted cartoons, female audiences weren't really considered, especially for action series. If there was a female character part of the main cast, she was often limited to love interest and or damsel in distress. In Ben 10's case, I think Julie could have been a lot worse. She's given more to do in later seasons, but she often falls into this trap of just being love interest. I think the only way I can explain my issue with her character is by saying that all paths lead to Ben. Basically, almost everything about her motivations, her emotions, are tied to Ben and not much else really. In contrast, Gwen is the best female character I could have asked for in a show like Ben 10. I realize we haven't seen her in the show yet, but if we're here, we're here. I always thought that Gwen was just good in my memory because she was the only girl. When I watched some classic Ben 10 episodes recently, it kind of proved that because while she still is my favorite character, she was just a little annoying. But when I watched the Alien series, I was like, damn, she's actually a well-written character for the most part. I think it was smart to make her Ben's relative from the beginning to remove the love interest stock characters since they shouldn't have romantic tension. And even though I knew she was just there to fill the role of girl on the team, I really did like her character. I felt that the writers did treat her like an actual character, not just a love interest for Kevin or only the voice of reason. In the original Ben 10 series, she doesn't really do as much as I'd have liked. That's one of the reasons I didn't love the original, but in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, she holds her own. She's given moments to shine and gets really cool fight scenes even outside of her focus episodes. She's also seldom the damsel in distress, although I'd argue that no one in the group is ever really the damsel in distress that often. In the original series, she could do magic on the side with her spellbook, but in Alien Force, she has full-on superpowers that were better than Ben's or Kevin's. Don't fight me, I'm dying on this hill. I'm sorry, anytime she and Ben or Kevin fought and she didn't win, I was like, yeah, okay, the writers just had to move the plot forward. So yeah, that's why I really liked Gwen's character. And can I tell you what shocked me? A series from the early 2010s, targeted to boys, with a predominantly male writing team, created a good female character whose personality wasn't completely lost, even as she was in a relationship with one of the main characters. Right? My jaw was on the floor. Now, if only this writing could have been extended to other female characters like Julie. In case you think I'm being unfair, just right now, off the top of your head, don't look it up. Tell me something about Julie aside from her name and that she plays tennis. What's her last name even? Exactly. More on Julie later. So what sends the events of the series into motion is that Ben wins a medal from his football match and wants to go show his grandpa Max. He goes to Max's trailer but doesn't find him and is then attacked by a DNA alien. He manages to fight it off and finds something called a holoviewer, which is essentially a holographic message left by Max where he says two important things.
Don't worry about the Omnitrix either. I have it. And it's completely safe. They'll never get their hands on it. Say hello to your cousin Gwen for me.
Ben takes this as Max trying to tell him to put the Omnitrix back on again since he knows Max doesn't have the watch. Just real quick, allow me to introduce a Cotton Eye Joe character, Ben's mom. Cotton Eye Joe, or CEJ, is what I'll use to describe characters or events that should go somewhere or come up again, but don't. Therefore, I always ask myself, where did you come from, where did you go when thinking about these characters and events? Yes, Ben's mom does appear in other episodes, but she's a blonde, not a redhead. Just to be clear, CEJ characters are characters that should come up or be mentioned again. Characters who are only in one episode, for example Gwen's dad, but are mentioned throughout the series do not count as CEJ characters. Ben also takes Max's advice to say hi to Gwen as a clue that he'll need her help to find Max. He goes to see her at judo practice. We get to see Gwen all grown up, and let's just appreciate this glow up. Yes, I've gushed about Gwen enough, so I'll just say she's one of the reasons I stuck with the series.
I got a problem. I need advice.
Okay, soon as I change.
Haha, could someone take forever to change? Okay, in all honesty, I can't hate on that joke so much. It was kind of funny and delivered in a subtle manner. In fact, when rewatching the series, I was actually shocked to find that there was a lot of subtle humor delivered, and I really liked that. I hate watching kids shows and the jokes are about as subtle as a baseball bat to the face. So Ben and Gwen meet this plumber. I have him written in my notes as the fish guy. As you can probably tell by me not remembering his name, he's in the irrelevant character category. So they fight him at first, despite the fact that he's actually an ally. Stuff like this happens a lot in the show, where they'll meet someone, think that they're a threat, attack them, and then realize, oh, it was pointless to fight. Maybe the writers had a rule about needing 2 or more fight scenes per episode, and this was an easy way to accomplish that. Gwen apprehends Fish Guy, and he explains that he was working on a case with Max before Max went missing, and that he didn't realize that Ben is Max's grandson and just thought he was some random kid who stole the Omnitrix, and that's why he attacked. Ben and Gwen join Fish Guy on a stakeout that he and Max were supposed to go on.
According to a tip from your grandfather, the Forever Knights, a group of criminals who
Trade in alien technology. Yeah, I know. I've run up against them before.
I personally think Ben could have calmed down just a little there. We then get to see who the Forever Knights are getting their weapons from. That's right, Kevin Levin is back and he is better. Now Kevin does and says some questionable things throughout the series, but he is a reason I decided to keep watching. He kind of oscillates between tough guy rebel with a heart of gold and just absolute menace, which is why I've created a Kevin being questionable file. In the Alien series, it's established that Kevin lost his father, who was also a plumber, and we later see that he lives with his mother. If you were like me and watched the original Ben 10 episode called Kevin Levin, I just did this to see if there were any young Levin moments to get high on. You may have thought that he was homeless and an orphan.
You live here?
Yeah, by myself.
We find out in Alien Force that he had a whole entire mother just chilling in her little house, and I think he has a stepdad, but at the point that I'm writing this, I haven't heard Kevin mention him. Maybe he was simply a runaway, but what's the protocol when an 11-year-old boy gets sucked into the null void? Did someone inform his mum like a plumber, or did she just assume Kevin was dead? I'm gonna need a little more backstory here. Also, 2 other things about him that I can't keep bringing up because it happens like every episode is the fact that Kevin loves his car as if it's his firstborn child, and he says pound, pound, or pounding to describe beating his enemies, and it has never not sounded weird.
you know him.
Kevin Levin. He's got superpowers. I fought him all the time when we were kids.
He ended up trapped in the null void, kind of an extra-dimensional jail.
I'm pretty sure a plumber would know what the null void is, Gwen. But this is what I meant in the beginning. It's difficult to get confused about certain things from the original series that carry over into the Alien series because it'll be explained to you, even when an explanation isn't necessary. Like explaining what the null void is to a plumber. That's like explaining jail to a cop. Also, I forgot to mention that Kevin no longer absorbs energy. He can, but it's established over the Alien series that he shouldn't because it would make him unstable. Instead, he absorbs matter, creating this armor around himself made from metal, stone, gold, etc. So they have this whole fight scene.
It's hero time!
Ben!
Watch!
This is the first of many examples of the Omnitrix as being the literal main character of the series. Both the Dean aliens and Forever Knights get away, but Kevin is caught.
Kevin, people could be hurt.
Yep, and now he's a good guy. Gwen uses one of the Forever Knights' weapons to track the rest of them down, and then we get this line.
Follow me!
I'll follow you anywhere.
And there it is. The reason it took me so long to binge the series. That line. I was rated a couple of years ago, then I heard that line and I said never mind. And I can't even tell you why I hated it so much. I know it sets up for a joke about Kevin's car, but my word, I just could not. Anyway, they find the Forever Knights and fight them, but the plumber gets injured in the process.
You can do anything.
So Fish Guy dies after being in the show for less than an episode, and now we've got the team. Kevin, Gwen, and Ben.
You okay?
Humongousaur skinned his knee, and it was still skinned when I turned back.
I'm gonna call this a CEJ event. Maybe because I didn't fully watch the original series, like maybe Ben always recovered no matter what whenever he transformed, but here it's like so random for me. And it's not like this sets up for a question that the series needs to answer, like why did Ben's knee not heal? It doesn't really go anywhere after this. Before I talk about the second episode, let's just talk about this theme song. I'm sorry, this is literally the only area in which the classic series was better. I know everything is aged up and we needed something more mature, but come on. We could have gotten something better. That's all I'll say about that. Don't even get me started on the Ultimate Alien theme song. The next episode is entitled Everybody Talks About the Weather, and largely centers around a DNA alien plot that, like I said, isn't that necessary to the final battle. They're basically manipulating the weather to make the DNA aliens more comfortable.
The aliens like it cold.
Anyway, we get a return of a heat blast alien in this episode who's actually the child of a plumber, Alan. I'll talk about the plumber's kids later in the video. I just want to point out that Alan shows his sheriffs his dad's plumber's badge, but they don't believe that it's anything important. We will come back to this when you get to Ultimate Alien, I promise. Not really much more to say about this episode except for a few Cotton Eye Joe things. Firstly, Gwen's stockings.
Gotta be a message from Grandpa Max. He's telling us where he is.
You think?
Okay, that's worth breaking some traffic laws.
I'm just kidding. Although that's not the last time they'll forget to draw on her stockings in a frame. What I'm not kidding about is Kevin's jacket. He's wearing one for whatever reason in this episode, and I don't know. It was kind of doing it for me. But alas, we never see it again.
Let me dump the jacket first. It must be 90 degrees.
That's what you get trying to look cool all the time.
The episode called Kevin's Big Score is full of Kevin being questionable moments. He meets with his old rat friend Archit, who I must say could have been worse. He never got too annoying for me, and he's really like the main villain of the episode, which is nice because I can't take him seriously as a villain. The same goes for the other villain in this episode, Volcanus and his minions. I can't take him that seriously, and I'm not supposed to, so that's fine. Volcanus will get a villain card because he's almost always a villain, but I'm calling Archit a recurring character because while he's a sleazy rat, he's more of an antagonist than a villain. He's just a conman, really. Anyway, in the pilot, Max uses a holeviewer to send Ben a message, and Archit tells Kevin that there's another holeviewer out there. Kevin steals a rust bucket to use as leverage with Archit, then goes to Volcanus to get the holeviewer, but Volcanus makes him absorb tetramide, is that what this is? He absorbs the turquoise diamond thing, and Volcanus imprisons him so his minions can mine him for the diamond. Ben and Gwen save him, and we see that this holeviewer has a special message from Max. This is how Kevin explains it all.
Why didn't you tell me?
Think about it. I'm an ex-con. I've done a lot of stuff I'm not proud of. Stuff that if you knew, you'd probably never trust me again.
Listen, I don't know how to feel about this episode. I guess they were trying to show Kevin's change, like trusting that they'll trust him. I guess, yeah, fine, Ben wouldn't have let Kevin take the rust bucket in the beginning, but by the middle of the episode when they have that fight and Kevin's like, I don't need to explain myself. No, you do. Especially because I don't know how they got the rust bucket back, but it wasn't in this episode. But it's not deep because there isn't really another episode like this. This serves as like the turning point of their relationship. They trust each other a lot more after this. In Max's message, he tells Ben to find the other plumber's kids. And here's the thing for me. The plumbers aren't like the Avengers. I'd argue they're more like the CIA in that it's just a bunch of guys with weapons. Some of them, yeah, do have powers, but Max doesn't. In later episodes, we see the plumbers training camp, and again, even some of the aliens don't have powers, like the Reader brothers who we'll discuss later. They're just aliens. My point is, even if they find plumbers kids, what if they're just not helpful? Like Ben without his watch. So in the next episode, All That Glitters, we meet a plumber's kid called Michael Morningstar, who, fortunately, does have powers. The episode opens with this girl walking up to a door and this thing jumps out. Yep, that's a CJ event because best believe you don't see a monster like that in this episode. This episode also serves as some Kevin and Gwen moments, for example, this interaction.
Why haven't you asked me out?
What?
So I'm asking you again.
See, that's the problem. You're asking me. A guy does the asking.
I'm counting as Kevin being questionable. He was kind of irritating this episode. At least when they meet Morningstar, his jealousy is funny to watch, but not over the top, like just fighting him out of nowhere or something, like with a squire later on. After a girl walks onto the highway causing an accident, the team meets Morningstar. After they rescue the girl and other victims of the accident, Morningstar shows them where he lives and how he's been tracking the alien activity.
Mom and her new husband live in the main house. They leave me alone, let me do what I want.
Cool.
Yeah, Neglect is awesome. At first I thought he was in college, but he said the girls were the same uniform as his school, so I'm pretty sure he's still a minor. Oh, and these zombie girls? Nightmare fuel for sure. There's something off-putting about the way they look. Let me explain the Nightmare Fuel file. The picture that I've used is a Dr. Seuss fish, but like the silhouette. This is because of a dream I had that I call the Three Fish Dream. The Three Fish Dream was the scariest dream I have ever had. And I've had a nightmare where I was being chased by Pennywise. He wasn't even gonna kill me, he just wanted to show me his true form. I don't even know what his true form is. I don't watch horror movies for the simple reason that my nightmares are intent on killing me. The Three Fish Dream isn't one I'll get into right now, but one of the scariest things about it is that it was like a dream within a dream. and unlike the Pennywise one, I couldn't get myself out of it. I can wake myself up by either pulling my finger back or literally prying my eyes open. When you eventually hear the three fish dream, you'll say, okay girl, calm down, it's not that bad. But listen, it's not so much about the dream's narrative as it is the feeling you get from it. So long story short, yada yada, Gwen goes on a date with Morningstar, but Kevin and Ben figure out that he's evil. He steals energy from girls, although I still have my questions about this. The girls he steals energy from have these marks on their arms. I'm gonna assume it's a scar from whatever was on his hand, or maybe he brands them with that mark and then uses it to drain them. He doesn't use that thing on his hand in other episodes though. But I'm also lost as to when the girls run from him and when they crave him, and why they would attack Kevin, Ben, and Gwen, or how they were able to pull apart electric cables like this. But you know what? I can't think about it for too long. Also, Michael's powers involve him absorbing energy, and there's an episode later on where his powers are said to be similar to Kevin's, but he is not an Osmosian like Kevin is. I don't know what he is, but he's not that. Let me tell you when I say the best thing about this episode is that Gwen saves herself. Ben and Kevin go to save her. She's half dead. Look at her. They get knocked out. Morningstar tries to kill them. Gwen drags her dying body over to Morningstar and she saves the day.
What are you doing?
Coming to my senses.
See what I mean about Gwen's character? She stepped up to the challenge when she can, but she's not like invincible, like sometimes she does need help and she accepts it. But the writers created the perfect balance between damsel in distress and absolute girl boss. And lastly from this episode is just Ben trying to be a leader. But if I'm being honest, Kevin should have been the leader, at least for a little bit before Ben takes the torch or something. I feel like Kevin knows a lot more about the alien world and technology, but you know what? This is Ben 10, so I won't complain about it again. Not me rapping. So in the next episode, Max Out, Ben's trying to convince Kevin to help his cousin.
Come on, Kevin, he's my cousin. He was supposed to be home from college 2 days ago.
And you want me to waste my time driving my car looking for your cousin?
We haven't heard anything since. His folks are worried.
And I'm supposed to care why?
Because he's my brother.
Get in.
It's just like, okay, Kevin, you know Ben and Gwen are related, so there's a strong chance Ben's cousin could be Gwen's relative. And even if it was just Ben's friend, what, do you have any other plans for the day? And to Ben, why didn't you mention that this cousin is Gwen's brother? So in this episode, it's established that Gwen has an older brother in college called Ken.
You're really sweet to do this, Kevin. Ken is...
What? Ken? Your brother's name is Ken? Gwen and Ken Tennyson? What's your folks' names, Sven and Jen? I'm talking to you, Ben.
Sorry, but Gwen, Ken, and Ben? Top tier content right there. This is where it's at. I'd like to think that the writers didn't put in any more relatives because they couldn't come up with any other names that rhymed with 10. There actually is another cousin in a later episode whose name isn't close to something rhyming with 10. It's Sunny. Like Jen was sitting right there. In the car, they gush about how cool Ken is. He took Ben to his first soccer game. What's wrong with me? His first football game. And he plays in a band. So they find Ken, but he has this thing on his head trying to turn him into a DNA alien.
Severe genetic damage detected.
Hello? Omnitrix, is that you?
Genetic code splicing error. Should we attempt to repair?
See what I mean? Main character. I just love that there's a situation and like no one knows what to do, and then the Omnitrix is like, hey, by the way, I can speak. And I have the perfect solution. Boom. They also find Max, and one thing led to another, he dies.
A null void warp projector. You think you can imprison us all?
No. But without the focusing lens, this thing will do a pretty good imitation of a hand grenade.
That's not what a hand grenade does. Everything just vanished, nothing combusted. Max clearly isn't dead, but we all have to act like he is. You might be wondering why I haven't shown Ken's file yet. It's because he's not getting one. Ken, unfortunately, is a CEJ character. This is literally the only episode he is in or is mentioned. I personally have to watch this episode once every few months just to confirm that Ken did exist and I'm not just crazy. I mean, they say he's at college, but he can visit home. He never got to meet his grandmother Verdona. He's apparently this really cool guy who plays in a band and takes Ben to football games, but where's he now? And also shame, why didn't Ken get to go on that road trip with his grandpa in the original series? What makes this also amusing is that the premise for this episode is that he's gone missing, when to be honest, he could have just been missing throughout the whole series and we wouldn't know. It's time for the ship episode. Pure pressure. One of these aliens, let's take up Upgrade, his name is Baz Allen, is a recurring character. He crashes on Earth, so he sends out a part of himself to get Ben to help, so that piece of himself becomes sentient and starts taking over vehicles, bumper cars, and carnival rides to get Ben's attention because Baz Allen is about to die, because I think there's a bomb or something. They save him in the end, but he leaves ship on Earth, and Ben and Julie walk with him for a while, but then he just runs off at some point and they're like, oh well. Right, Julie's back. It's Ben and Julie's first date, which I can't hate on. This episode is really cute. Also, Julie finds out that Ben can transform into all the different aliens, and she thinks it's cool.
I have a zit the size of Kansas.
Yeah, that's one big zit, all right.
How did you get in here?
The usual way. Incidentally, you may want to fix that hole I punched in your back door before your mother sees it. knob's broken.
All this destruction of property, and for what? Why did Ben's parents only return in season 2? Like, how did he explain the broken door handle to them? Kevin also teases Ben like pretending to be his dad or something. It's goofy, but it's funny.
Now remember, Benny boy, your mother and I want you home by 10 o'clock sharp or you can't go to the disco.
Disco?
He watches a lot of reruns.
Give him a break, Kevin.
Gosh, Pumpkin, what do you mean?
Gwen gets her first focus episode in the next episode, What Little Girls Are Made Of, where she and Ben meet their grandmother, Verdona. She does play the role of villain in this episode because she wants Gwen to leave with her to her planet to learn how to properly use her abilities and doesn't really want to take no for an answer. She literally says she wants to destroy Gwen's body. Gwen eventually convinces Verdona to let her stay, and Verdona's like, alright. We also get to meet Gwen's parents, Frank and Natalie, who literally did absolutely nothing as Verdona attacked their daughter. Her dad gives me a Gospin vibes, don't ask me to explain, so does Cigar says, and her mom really is just a mood.
Verdona, what a surprise.
In this episode, we also learn a little more about Gwen's powers. In the classic cartoon, she can perform magic spells and believes that's where her powers come from. But in episode 3, Kevin says this.
Humans with alien ancestors are actually pretty common. Most of them have superpowers.
Common?
Well, yeah, that's what you are. You get your powers through your grandpa.
Which Gwen scoffs. But no, Verdona is an alien. She's an Anodite, which is basically an energy being that has the ability of mana manipulation. Mana is essentially the life source of all living things.
Let me teach you to master life energy. That's what mana is.
I still don't get it though, so we're still classifying her powers as pink light beams. Gwen's dad was aware that Verdona wasn't human, but never said anything because he thought Gwen didn't have powers. Like him and Ben's dad never got powers, Ben never got powers, Gwen wasn't presenting powers so soon, so he never felt the need to tell her that they're aliens. I get it, but also if someone's not fully human, surely they have the right to know. Maybe he was going to tell when she was older. Natalie comes back throughout the series. In fact, I think she's the parent with the most screen time, but Frank, dang it. He's not a CEJ because he still exists, they talk about him, but he just never shows up again, and I don't know why. Oh, and I can't exclude the sign, which is obviously top tier content.
Dude, I don't know if I can pound your grandma.
The next episode, Paradox, is important for 2 reasons. I don't find the plot that interesting. There's this thing going around aging people and the environment around it. The reason that it's there is to do with some time travel experiment from the year 1952. This episode is set in a place called La Soledad, and it later becomes a place that the DNA aliens do a lot of their dirty work, and the site of the final battle at the end of season 2. So that anomaly thing turns Kevin into a grandpa.
There's something different about you. Is it your hair?
Yeah, I'm parting it down the middle now.
Top tier, no explanation needed, but also we meet the best character on the show, undisputedly, Professor Paradox.
Swampfire. That takes me back. Or is it forward? It's so hard to tell, Ben. Have we met?
If I could show you every clip of this guy here, I would. Paradox is going to come up quite a bit throughout the series, by the way. The next episode, Be Knighted, is very much filler. Not that much to talk about, really. The Forever Knights ask the team to help them slay a dragon they imprisoned thousands of years ago. They find the dragon and at some point use their translators on him, and it turns out he's not that horrible, and they help him get to his ship. The Forever Knights as a whole are going to fall under Saturday morning villains. There are specific knights who will get files when we learn their names, for example, the knight we met in this episode. The dragon in this episode was just trying to do his job, because he was an alien who came to Earth to make a map. But then he got in prison for millennia. When he finds his ship, he says he wants to wipe out the Forever Knight, and Ben's like, no, I can't let that happen. But Kevin's like, well, they're the villains anyway. And that's not Kevin being questionable. I actually kind of agree with him here. Getting revenge isn't good, don't misunderstand me, but it's not like the Knights apologized. They're literally preparing to kill him. They probably do the same thing to any other innocent alien. My guy was just trying to do his job, and because of that, he never got the chance to watch his family grow up. But anyway, Ben's like,
You're not a monster. You're a map maker.
and that's it. Sometimes I get mad at this show for setting up this tricky dilemma, then just resolving it in one line. But then I have to remind myself that this is a show for kids and everything. But then again, asking for a little bit more from a kids show isn't that out of left field. At the very least with this part of the show, the writers didn't bite off more than they could chew. The writers only started doing that later on. The dilemma was just revenge or let it go. I just think they rushed that resolution so the episode could be wrapped up with a nil bow. One last thing is that the dragon choosing to leave and not attack the knights was framed as the right decision. One might ask if the writers chose to have him make that decision to teach their audience that revenge isn't good, or because they needed the Forever Knights to stay on the show. I'm asking this because of an episode all the way in season 3 where the writers find themselves at this crossroads again and choose to make one of the good guys a murderer, but we'll get there. In the next episode, Plymouth Helpers, we're introduced to Manny, Helen, and to a certain extent Pierce. In terms of the plot, they have a null void projector that they call a disintegrator that they use to dust aliens they find. This episode raises too many questions because, for one thing, they are aliens. We can take Accelerate and Forearms off the list, by the way. But they don't seem to be aware of the fact that they're aliens. Helen's brother Pierce was sucked into the null void, so they assume he's been turned to dust. We only see him through videos that he'd recorded. They find Ben, Kevin, and Gwen and want to dust them too. What makes this even weirder is that their only basis for saying that the team are aliens is that they have powers, never mind their human appearance. Manny and Helen look nothing like humans, and they have powers. Many of my questions are going to fall under the topic of alien-human genetics, so let's just talk about the rest of the stuff from this episode. For one thing, Manny and Helen have been going around believing that they're killing creatures and don't seem that fazed about it. They've just had quite a few plumbers or plumbers' kids, and with the plumbers in sending one to investigate the strange disappearance of their ancients or ancients' children. Also, they dusted quite a few DNA aliens. In the episode Max Out, it's established that DNA aliens are actually humans, but I don't recall the show making a point of stating that these DNA aliens were later cured and sent back to Earth. Now let's talk about Manny and Helen. Manny is the most annoying character ever be created. He's very one-note, he doesn't listen to a word Helen says, he's impulsive, irritating, and reckless. Because of this, Helen isn't given really much of a personality outside of her relating to Manny. She's the one who suspects that maybe not every plumber is human and that they need to start thinking about their moves a lot more, but because of Manny being so irritating, she's always comes off as kind of whiny and angry, and that's not necessarily bad on the writer's part. It makes a lot of sense. It's like when you keep trying to talk to someone and they never listen to you, and it's that way for such a long time that when you do finally get a chance to speak to them, you're so irritated and frustrated that you don't express yourself as clearly. My major beef with Helen is that she was limited to constantly being the voice of reason and having a moral compass, but she didn't really do much about it. Before she could even finish her thought, Manny was already running into a fight and she had to go and back him. And let me just say that speed trumps strength any day. If Manny refused to listen, Helen is fast enough to stop him each time. She could create a tornado or simply run ahead of him and stand in his path, which I mean you could argue she did do that, but Manny still got his way. You see, after she stops him, she suggests that they follow the team and maybe find a nest of DNA aliens. In the beginning they think the team are DNA aliens, but after they've captured Kevin late in the episode, they just think they're just aliens because he's not wearing an ID mask like other DNA aliens sometimes do. So they're following the team, and Helen thinks that they're arguing and asks if they know that they're following them. So Manny says, let's find out, and starts a whole fight injuring human civilians. Why? Why? This episode irritates me so much. Manny and Kevin are presented like they're similar. There are quite a few comparisons made between the two in this episode, but I don't really see it. Sometimes I wondered if the writers knew what Kevin's character was supposed to be. Like there's some episodes where they made him so clueless and unintelligent, and it really was out of character because Kevin is the definition of street smart. He's a quick thinker, unlike Manny, who's ridiculously impulsive. Don't misunderstand me, Kevin can rush into fights from time to time, but if you watch this episode and compare it to an episode like The Creature from Beyond in UA, you'd get what I mean. I think for the most part, Kevin rushes in when he knows the enemy, like he might rush into a Forever Knight fight because he's fought them before. Manny, on the other hand, is only similar to Kevin in that they're the muscle of the team, but after that the comparisons fall flat. I'd argue that they turned Kevin's arguing up to 11 for the comparison to work better in this episode, but I wouldn't say he argues as much as he does in this episode. I think the snarky comments he makes to Manny are in character, but it would make a lot more sense for him to stay calm and collected as Manny gets upset with him, instead of this face-off they have. Although all this bickering makes for my favorite interaction of the show.
You want to go another round? Anytime, pal.
Think you're funny?
Hey, you're the comedian. At least you got the face for it.
Boy, are you asking for it?
I'm begging for it. Who's gonna give it to me?
Before we talk about alien genetics, I just want to point out that while Kevin was kidnapped and the team had to rescue him, he kind of rescued himself. All he really needed was a distraction that caused Helen and Manny to leave. He then uses loose change in his pocket to make an armor for his hand, which he then uses to turn off whatever this shield thing is. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Kevin uses his power to make a shield for this random guy, which makes me wonder why we don't see him use his power again. So far I haven't found an example of when this power would be necessary, but if I do, I'll mention it again. Okay, technically he uses his power in UA. So finally at the end of this episode, things are resolved, and I just want to point out a few bits of dialogue throughout the episode that prompt some of the questions I have. So after all the beef with Manny and Helen has calmed down, Ben says one of their parents was human and that's the reason the team can change back into their human forms. But Manny and Helen can't change back because of luck.
One of your parents must have been human. The other, not so much.
Yeah? Then how come you can switch back but we can't?
Luck of the draw.
Who wrote this? Firstly, no one can change back. Okay, technically Gwen can, but let's excuse her for a bit. Kevin and Ben do not have alien forms that they naturally change into. In Ben's case, yes, he's descended from an Anodai, but that's not the reason he can transform. It's the watch. I don't know why he didn't mention the watch when explaining things. Kevin looks the way he does because his dad looked normal. Okay, a little better than normal if you ask me, but normal nonetheless. So it's not luck of the draw, it's basic genetics. You look like your parents. Now, I don't want to ask too many questions about the conception of Manny, Helen, and Pierce, and I'm not really sure about this. It seems like they were born human and then later became full-bred aliens. But why? How? It's not like these aliens have some transformative abilities, and in their alien forms there's not a shred of human on them, which makes me wonder why Ben said that one of their parents had to be human. Also, how are Pierce and Helen related? You could argue that they're step-siblings, but what's the reason for not specifying it? Why did no one explain this to them? I guess maybe it's similar to Alan from episode 3 who can swap between Heat Blast and his normal form, but I'm just thinking that his alien parent must have had some shape-shifting abilities, because help me understand how a human has a baby with fire. When I watched this episode for the first time, I thought that maybe Pierce, Helen, and Manny were raised in an orphanage or something, and told that they were humans, which should explain why they know little about their lineage and why Helen refers to Pierce as her brother. Because bear with me and think about this family tree. If they're half siblings, it means one of their parents just couldn't get enough of that alien love. Being full siblings wouldn't make any sense, because if you saw two siblings of different races who are related by blood, they're half siblings. So if they're step siblings but grew up with the same parent or parents, it would mean that one of their parents had an alien child, didn't tell them that they were half alien, then adopted another alien child and then tell them that they were half alien. Wow, there's so much not to understand here. Because also in episode 3, Gwen doesn't believe that she's partly alien. Yes, she has her powers, but she writes them off as being from her spellbook. This makes sense because outside of her powers, Gwen looks human. Imagine she was walking around in this form and then just thinking, yeah, I'm just an ordinary girl in an ordinary world. They also show Ben the other aliens they've dusted, and he says they could be plumbers kids like them. But if I have to go on one more rant about the plumbers, why can't they keep track of their agents' kids? Surely if Earth is a planet that at this moment isn't completely aware of aliens, no one is going to help people like Helen, Pierce, and Manny if they lose their family. At that point, it should be the plumber's responsibility to find shelter for them. And what, did all their parents die? Or are they just absent? Also, I have no idea why when Ben saw all the aliens that were dusted, he assumed they were plumbers' kids, or why Manny and Helen had to be plumbers' kids, in the sense that in Ultimate Alien, we learned that the plumbers know about aliens living on Earth whether they be there legally or illegally, and not all of them are plumbers. So why is it we see an alien child and have to assume that their parents are or were plumbers? Okay, so to make things right, Manny and Helen go to the Null Void to rescue some of the aliens that they put there. And for the final episode of Season 1, we have Ben equals X plus 2. There's something going on with these frog people and this red robot assassin thing they hired. This red robot isn't worth me looking up his name, and I won't talk about the frog people's plotline in this episode. But the main reason we're talking about this episode is to discuss Alien X, as this is its debut. Firstly, I refer to Alien X as it because I'm not really sure what pronoun to use. I guess they would be better since Alien X is kind of two beings in one, kind of. It's really weird. Anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about Alien X is because I feel like some people didn't like what the show did with them. And maybe you're expecting me to hate on it right now. But personally, I think Alien X could have been so much worse. The voices of War and Love are really funny and interesting to watch, and it kind of breaks the monotony of the show. You know, transform into an alien, fight, and that's it. Like, it shows the drawbacks of some of these aliens, and this becomes somewhat of a weakness for Ben. Also, did you see Alien X's powers? It would have been too powerful, especially existing on the main menu of Ben's aliens. Like, for example, Weybig isn't on that menu, and is rarely used in the show because, I mean, look at him. Any of that would be over in minutes. And that's all from Season 1. I'm not going to get my thoughts on the season just yet. I'd rather wait until the end of Season 2 because they kind of feel like the same season to me, especially because they both build up to the hybrid invasion plan. Also, I just realized that I accidentally skipped an episode of my rewatch. Season 1, Episode 9, The Gauntlet. I was going to go back and insert my thoughts, but it has these two as a focal point, therefore not one of my favorite episodes. The only thing I feel something for in this episode is when they just left Kevin.
Go. I'll be okay.
I'll come back for you after.
Hello? Anybody? Hello?
We all know he deserved better. So many of you might not know this, but there was a live-action Ben 10 movie that came out in 2009. I'm including it here because while I thought it wasn't canon, a certain character shows up in Ultimate Alien, so I guess it is. It's just very weird, and it was not good. You know, the movie's so horrible, it's just hilarious, and people make videos on them like The Room, Hallmark movies, any movie with Noah Centineo. But this movie, it's a live-action adaptation, so already not going to be that great. But the dialogue was killing me, the effects were terrible, and the plot was so boring I could not. I watched the movie with my younger sister, and we were silent throughout most of it. Yeah, if you watch those videos I posted with my sister, or know my sister and me, you'd know how shocking it is that we barely said anything. I had to keep looking over at her to make sure she hadn't fallen asleep or run away while I wasn't looking. She was also kinda mad because she thought it was gonna be an animated movie, and as soon as she saw the intro, she was done. I asked her to share her thoughts here, so I guess she can tell you guys how she felt about the movie, but just be warned, she didn't have that much to say. So we just watched Ben 10 Alien Swarm? Swarm, like a swarm of bees. So I want to know your thoughts on the movie. Like, just give a 5-word review, no more than 5 words.
It's...
Why'd you waste time saying it?
Sorry, it was bad. It was boring.
Do you... Kevin?
Don't.
Do you think Kevin was like a good casting choice for like in reference to the Alien Force Ultimate Alien Kevin?
Like, I don't really think he was bad, but like, he was really skinny.
Okay, well that's rude considering.
You're calling me fat?
Oh, he's skinny.
What?
How do you feel about Ben?
Ben. He actually kind of looked like he could be a Ben. It's just his like his body
Yeah.
and his hair.
Yeah.
His face.
Okay, and lastly, Gwen.
Dude, I wasn't really paying attention to I'm not gonna lie.
May you please summarize the film?
Bruh, why?
You're so irritating.
Like some people, like the people, Ben, Gwen, and Ten, and Kevin, like, no. Dude, I don't know.
Go, please try.
I'm trying so hard.
So like when you're looking at the screen.
Dad, you know.
It's like you don't think about anything else.
Yes. That's how you get through hard days. How you get through class.
That's actually so motivational, Moki. It's so profound.
I learned from the best.
So rude. So do you have anything to say about this movie?
No, I just want to move past it, bro.
So
But
why
you
are we
keep
still
bringing it
here?
up.
Okay, finally, let me ask you, what did you feel about the editing, like the visual effects?
It was bad. It was like they had no money. It was like a child did it.
Like the whole film, what is the effects?
Bruh, everything.
But I feel
There
like
was a
some movie was
scene.
better than that.
No, literally.
What scene?
There was a scene where people were walking around and it literally just looked like they couldn't pay extra, so they just went to the streets and filmed people walking.
You know, actually, in this, it looked like the whole town had been taken over, but there were like 30 people in the climax.
Literally.
So is there anything else we need to say?
I guess not.
Do you have any comments on Ben 10, the Alien series?
I guess not.
You're being very articulate today. I'm very glad. Anyway,
Is this black?
thank you for your time.
Is that it?
Bro, my brother.
Is that it?
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say?
Please pass me the color pencil.
A closing thing. I want to say bye. Thanks for having me.
No.
So yeah, I think a major issue I had with this movie was just the character of Elena. I thought she existed in the classic series with the way they talk about her, but she did not. Her first appearance is in the movie, so okay. She basically arranges this whole thing to ask Ben, Gwen, and Kevin for help because her dad, who was a plumber, has gone missing. But these chips, don't get me started on the chips, start to attack them, and instead of sticking around helping and then explaining herself, she runs away so that she can break into their lab, then complain that they don't trust her. By the end of the movie, she's in the group and there's no twist, no one's secretly evil, they're all friends now. Well, now that she's part of the team, I can't wait to see in season 2. Oh wait, she doesn't exist? But she does? Do you guys see why this is baffling? Anyway, season 2. So the first episode of season 2, Dark Star Rising, is a little messy in my opinion, particularly because there are like 4 different antagonists in this that attack the main team.
Forever Knights.
Up to no good as usual.
To be honest, maybe they were conducting legal business, but okay. The Forever Knights were actually just a hologram. The team is confronted by this plumber who is essentially Fishguy's replacement. He wants to arrest them for impersonating plumbers. Wasn't that entrapment though? Remember how I said sometimes they just have unnecessary fights? Like he said he's a plumber, why would you attack?
You feeling froggy, son? Then jump.
I need to find a way to integrate that line into normal conversation.
And if you're feeling smart, don't.
Ribbit.
Let's not, Kevin. I'm trying to like you, stop saying cringy things like that. So Kevin doesn't listen to Gwen and then they all fight for whatever reason, and they lose. Kevin's badge is confiscated, putting him in a terrible mood, and he lashes out at Ben.
He took my badge. Badges?
We don't need no stinking badges.
You think this is a joke?
Kevin, let him go!
Dude!
This is one of the very rare instances where Ben didn't deserve to be hurt.
When I was little, my mom would tell me stories about my dad. How he was a plumber and he did all this cool stuff.
I never met your dad.
Have you met his mom? So this is where the episode starts to get a little messy. This guy, Darkstar, attacks a hybrid alien station, and then the hybrid attacks Gwen and Kevin. But before the attack, Gwen gives Kevin a gift to lift his spirits.
I brought you a present.
What's this?
A wooden ball. How about this one? I brought you a whole bag of them, all made of different materials. That way, when we're in a fight, you can change to whatever you want.
Thanks, but it doesn't really work that way. I need a lot of whatever I'm copying.
Oh.
And what makes you think I'm still helping you guys anyway?
I love Kevin and Gwen's relationship, but this moment, as well as most of Season 3, show Kevin kinda taking Gwen for granted. I think this is a perfect example because there are a couple of episodes where I bet he wished he'd kept that gift in his pocket, and I wish it came back. This is a CEJ gift. Please don't misunderstand me, he definitely cares for Gwen and it will start showing a lot more in future episodes. So anyway, the plumber, Ben, Kevin, and the hybrid get attacked by Darkstar. It was Darkstar's plan to have the hybrid attack the team, but then he also double-crossed the hybrid. Also, Darkstar was the one who called in the Magister and snitched on the team. Ben tells Gwen to go because she's their only hope. It's moments like this that you remember Ben 10 really is a kid's show. Like, do you know how many times they'll just be knocked out and then just kept there? Dude, just kill them or drain their energy or something. Anyway, Ben figures out who Darkstar really is.
You had to be somebody who knows all about the plumbers and the hybrid. But most importantly, you have to be someone with a grudge against us.
I don't know how much that narrows it down.
Why don't you take off the dopey mask, Michael?
Now I am Darkstar.
And then Gwen saves the day.
Ew. I swear you were better looking when we used to go out.
How can you possibly hope to defeat me alone?
Who said anything about alone? They're pretty mad about you kidnapping their boss.
I love how the episode doesn't have to be Gwen-centric for her to save everyone. And I'd like to think that she could have defeated him on her own but didn't deem him worth the effort. Alright, technically it was a team effort to take down Michael. They start throwing him around and then just hitting him before he gets knocked down and Humongousaur jumps on his chest. I also forgot to mention that when Kevin threw Ben, it was because he was mad about the plumber's badge because he wanted to be a plumber like his dad. Gwen comments that she never met his dad and Kevin responds, neither did I. We'll come back to this when you get to Season 3. Also, let me talk about plumber's badges. Kevin mentions that some parents will leave their badges with their children, but I have some issues with this. Is there anyone out there with parents who are like police officers? Yeah, do they just leave their badges with you? Like, do the plumbers have more than one badge on them that they can just give out? Like, this guy just gives them badges. Did he just have them on him? Also, that's a child, not an officer. This plumber acknowledges that they're descendants of plumbers, but still says it isn't enough to qualify as a plumber. By the end of the episode, he gives Kevin and Gwen badges. Ben has the Omnitrix, so he counts that as a badge, officially making them plumbers and then leaving. I don't know how high Magisters rank, but I don't think he has the authority to just make people plumbers, especially children. Alone Together is definitely one of my favorite episodes overall, which is shocking because Kevin and Gwen aren't really in it, and Ben has to carry the episode with another hybrid. So the episode opens with the team trying to capture a hybrid. This really confused me because what are they going to do with him? They don't have handcuffs. They can't just send him to jail. And that just reminds me, what do they do when they've arrested an alien? Do they just knock them out and then say, aight, time to get a smoothie? Anyway, Kevin decides to be stupid and throw a rock across the room, missing his target by a long shot and damaging this teleportation thingy, which sucks Ben and the hybrid in, leaving them stranded on a desert planet with creatures like this trying to kill them at every turn. They obviously build a friendship over the episode, and the hybrid really goes into detail about his people and their motivations and beliefs.
Hybrids were the very first race in the universe. All species, hence, other than pure-blooded hybrids, are nothing but mongrels, hideous abominations of nature.
The sooner we get moving, the sooner we get home.
Your kind disgusts me.
So yeah, this is the best time to talk about the hybrids. Now the hybrids, they're just their own breed. I only wish that their egotistical mindset had been hammered in just a little more before Ben and the other one get stranded. And while we're on the topic, I mean, maybe I'm just dumb, but help me out. Is there anyone out there who just thought that there was only one of these things? Like, they're a whole race of aliens. Very few left, but a whole race nonetheless. So I think around the Stranded episode was when I realized that there was more than one, but they just look really similar. What am I saying? They're the same! And then the team only fights them one at a time for the most part, so I just assumed it was the same one they were fighting. If they had mentioned this and I just didn't realize it, please forgive me, but there might be more moments like this because, like I said in the intro, I was solving things like this while watching the series, so some stuff might have gotten lost as my brain was processing 5 times 8. Also, hybrid does sound very similar to hybrid, which is ironic considering they believe all other beings aside from them are hybrids or mongrels and therefore inferior. And good lord do I hate Echo Echo's voice. I can't add anything to that, I just hate it. So I don't think I paid enough attention to this episode the first time I watched it, so I never understood why the hybrid ends up calling Ben Tennyson. But now I know it's because of this.
My name is Ben Tennyson.
And I like that joke a lot. So yeah, Ben introduces himself and so does the hybrid, but his name is really long, so Ben gives him a nickname.
I am called Rhine Rosset III, 7th son of the noble hybrid house of Dirala, direct descendant of the pure-blooded High Order of Rosset, heir to the...
I'm gonna call you Rhiney.
Did he say his name was Rhiney though? You know what, I don't care that they're planning to eradicate every other species in the universe. I'm taking Rhiney's side here. Not to be that person, but Ben's kind of disrespectful to someone he's trying to befriend. And I don't have a name as long as Rhiney's, but it's still pretty long. And it does irritate me when I tell someone my name and they choose to shorten it without like asking me if I'm okay with that nickname. Like, it's a very small pet peeve, and I'm afraid of confrontation, so I don't usually tell people how much it irritates me. But if you've ever called me she, Sheil, or Shields, just now I was screaming internally.
As soon as I no longer require your aid for my own protection, Ben Tennyson, I shall eradicate you. You are tired, human. I shall take the first watch.
I love the I'll kill you anyway. Well, good night, sleep well. At some point, Rhiney protects Ben from an attack, but loses his arm in the process. Ben uses swamp fire to fix Rhiney's hand.
It was in my own interest to stop that creature from harming you.
Yeah? Well, it's in my interest to help anybody who needs it.
Let's hold on to this line for a bit, okay? But just remember this episode, how kind he is to an alien who has hurt him and his friends and plans to destroy the universe, versus how he treats an ex-con who has no intention of hurting him or his friends again, Kevin. But we're not ready for that conversation. Not yet. In the end, Ben manages to get back to Earth, but Rhiney chooses to stay in self-imposed exile. He believed he'd been contaminated, which is why he risked his life saving Ben, injuring himself in the process. He is now inferior to other hybrid and cannot return. Don't worry though, he'll change his mind later. So the next episode, Good Copy Bad Copy, opens with the Forever Knights being attacked by Ben. Only it's not Ben, it's Albedo, who's a recurring villain throughout the series. Kevin and Gwen are confused as to why Ben's is going around attacking people without them, so they pay him a visit, and it turns out he's been studying with Julie the whole evening.
If I don't pass, my mom will ground me, which means minimal hero time and 0 Julie time.
So Ben, you can't spend what little time you have on Julie. Good to know. So anyway, shortly afterwards, they meet Albedo, who claims to be the creator of the Omnitrix, saying it malfunctioned with Ben's DNA as the default. Actually, no, I'm not explaining this myself.
You see, your DNA is encoded as the default in your Omnitrix. Mine synchronizes across space and time with yours. You have become my default as well.
So Ben obviously refuses to give up the Omnitrix, and we haven't had a proper fight scene in the episode yet, so...
You are not worthy to wear the Omnitrix.
But Albedo escapes. Gwen is able to track him though through his mana. So I think this confirms that just because Ben and Albedo look identical, their mana is different. That's cool, that's fine. But what doesn't make any sense is when they track Albedo to this place, Gwen says that there's too much machinery, not enough living things, so she can't track Albedo anymore. And I don't get that. Yes, she can't track something that's inorganic like a robot because it's not living, but Albedo is organic and they're a lot closer to him now. It's not like they're tracking him across the city or something, a city full of technology and machinery. She was also tracking him from inside a car, so like, why was that technology not disrupting her powers?
We'll split up and surround him.
How will we know which one's the real you?
Hey!
We'll call you Ben X.
So I just hope we're in agreement that this has to be the dumbest scene in cartoon history. Cause firstly, you don't have to split up. Secondly, they're splitting up in 2 groups, not 3. So why couldn't it have been Ben and Gwen in one group and Kevin in another? Or Ben and Kevin in one group and Gwen in another? Surely someone should be with Ben at all times? And what was Ben's reason for wiping off the mark? Like, he just wipes it off and walks away. Great leader right there. So then, obviously, this happens.
Didn't you go the other way?
Yeah. Oh man, I should not have erased Kevin's mark.
But see, how did they fall for this? It's not like they were being quiet or anything. And why on earth would he say it like that? Also, Ben would never admit that he did something wrong. That's clearly not Ben. And how exactly do Gwen's powers work? Like, surely she can, I don't know, match Albedo's mana to Albedo? Like, they're standing right next to each other. Like, yeah, a dog can't necessarily track someone across the country, but if that person is standing right in front of it, even in a room full of other scents, the dog could recognize the person's scent. So they fall for the trap and get held back by packing foam. I didn't even know that was a thing until I watched this episode. How did Albedo know? And don't give me that, oh, he's a Galvin, smartest life forms nonsense. Just because he's smart doesn't mean he automatically knows how to operate every piece of machinery on Earth. So because I found out what packing foam is, I looked it up. I wanted to know if it could harden fast enough to trap two conscious people, and if, when hardened, it would be almost impossible to get out of. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, it looks like it's just styrofoam when it's hardened. Therefore, they should be able to break free, but I don't know. Off topic and unimportant. Also, Gwen uses laser eyes in this episode. I'll add that to her list of abilities and constantly remind you of it when the writers forget about this ability. So the two Bens fight, their watches collide, and Albedo's DNA gets chained to something, so his eyes turn red and his hair turns white. That's fine. I think that was the writer's way of telling us that the evil twin trope is a one-time thing, or at least won't be overused. But like, why did his jacket change color? Was that part of his DNA? Anyway, finally, the creator of the Omnitrix, Azimuth, intervenes. This is his first appearance in the Alien series, and here's the thing. I don't really like Azimuth. Sometimes he's alright, like he puts Ben in his place, but other times all I can think is shut up and leave me alone. Also, is he God? I'll get into that later. Let's take Grey Matter off our pyramid. Azimuth explains that Albedo is actually just his assistant and sends him to a prison but makes him stay in his Ben form as a punishment. To be honest, I don't think he deserved that at all. Like, shame, imagine having to be trapped in the body of, I don't know, a giraffe for the rest of your life. I picked giraffe because they're a lot bigger than humans, just like the size difference between humans and grey matters. Like, I don't know how I'd feel about being forced to be a completely different species. But also, it's not like he was forced to be a human in general. He was doomed to just be Ben. Like, that's so sad. I'd remain a villain too. The episode entitled Save the Last Dance is the Ben 10 episode. I literally have nothing to hate about this one. It's just yes. It's just yes. Both the A and B plots are definitely compelling, and there's this whole reference to Ghost Freak because it seems like that's where this episode is going. Okay, so the main plot is that when Ben is Big Chill, he keeps eating metal and blacking out, and he fears that Big Chill is gonna be Ghost Freak Part 2. The other thing going on is that Gwen wants Kevin to take her to a dance, and let me tell you, when I say the Gwevin scenes in this had me in a chokehold. So another thing that's great about this episode is that everyone keeps ignoring Ben's problem. Oh, and because he spends most of the episode without his jacket. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I really like how Ben looks without his jacket. It might just be the color. I don't really understand how we haven't outlawed lime green clothing yet. But yeah, the ignoring.
I found this in my teeth. I think something might be going wrong with my powers.
Uh-huh. What do you know about girls?
They don't keep this joke for the whole episode so it didn't get tired, but Ben gives Kevin Max's tuxedo and gives him advice, and the show suggests this could do with the whole Big Chill situation altering his mood, but I really do wish we could have seen this side of Ben a lot more. Also, Julie is here. While everything she does in this episode is tied to Ben, she does use the skill she has, like how quickly and thoroughly she can write notes, and how she eventually convinces Kevin and Gwen that something is wrong. She's very protective over Ben in this episode, and while she doesn't necessarily save his life, it's still really sweet. Ben asks Julie to follow him around in the night to see what he's doing, which is when we get this scene.
You remember Jet Ray?
From the pier.
Okay, here goes.
Big Chill.
This was very similar to the Ghost Freak situation in which Ben would transform into Ghost Freak when he didn't program it. As Gwen says,
Maybe there's some connection between Big Chill and Ghost Freak. Like maybe these ghost personalities are just plain evil.
Another question is, even if Ben isn't in control of Big Chill right now, won't the Omnitrix run out of charge? Like, he remains Big Chill for like the whole night, but he can't spend an hour transformed. Oh right, sorry, main character. How could I forget? The big twist at the end is that Big Chill has been acting strange because... That's right, Ben is a teen mom.
Yup, those are your kids.
How?
According to this, Necrophrygian, that's Big Chill's race, lays eggs only once every 80 years or so. They'll live in space where it's cold, and then they feed on solar plasma. Doubt you'll ever see them again. Mommy.
All jokes aside though, this was a refreshing episode. I think it kept it simple. Although just a couple of questions, I'm fine with the male of the species being the one to give birth or like lay eggs, or maybe both females and males do it. They didn't elaborate, but do they reproduce asexually? I mean, it's only a thing I've heard about in plants and bacteria. So anyway, Julie's curfew makes an appearance. Definitely won't be the last time.
This is the most embarrassing.
I think you made a great mommy.
This is a really cute moment, I don't care. And now I'm gonna have to risk a copyright strike, but I have to play the best scene of this episode. I cannot breathe, this was so cute. Undercover is the next episode and features Cooper returning. I don't know how many die-hard fans of the classic series are watching. Cooper was the plumber's kid that Ben and Gwen met in the classic series, whose powers... Okay, confession time. I did not originally watch the episodes with Cooper, so this episode from Alien Force was the first time I'd even heard of him. In Undercover, Kevin explains that Cooper's power is manipulating alien technology, but from what I saw, his powers just look like telekinesis. So I went back to the original series to see if I could learn more about Cooper and his powers, but the episode he appeared in was like a two-parter and part 1 was just not it for me. Guys, I'm sorry, I feel like Darkstar is draining my energy anytime I watch a classic Ben 10 episode. So maybe there was some stuff from the original that could have explained some things. For example, I didn't pick up from the first part of the episode that Cooper had a crush on Gwen, but anyway. In Undercover, their teleportation pod is broken, so Kevin suggests they go to his friend, Cooper.
You should have told us you knew him.
Didn't exactly come up.
You didn't think a kid with the ability to manipulate alien tech would have been helpful against the DN aliens?
It's possible I know 2 or 3 people I haven't told you about, Ben. Anyway, if you're so smart, why didn't you think of him before?
Okay, that's a fair point.
Nice lampshading, yeah, I didn't suspect a thing. So when they go to Cooper's house, they realize he's been abducted. Alright, that's fine. But like, where are this boy's parents? His dad's a plumber, what about his mom? Maybe they're off at work, but Cooper has no supervision. And also, what's the timeline here? Because when they find Cooper, he says things that kind of imply that he's been with the DN aliens for quite some time. But like, okay, if he had been gone for a while, it could explain how he knows so much about the DN aliens and their plan. But it wouldn't make any sense as to why his parents or guardian hadn't started panicking yet. So let's say they found out he was kidnapped the same day he was kidnapped, but maybe like a few hours afterwards. The issue is then how coincidental it is that they randomly decide to go find him after 5 years of never even mentioning him because their teleportation pod wouldn't work. I think the episode could have just followed a plot similar to Max Out. When Ken, Gwen's brother, yes, you will remember him, went missing, they went to go find him and stumbled upon the DN aliens. If they'd gotten a distress message from Cooper's dad, who was maybe off-world, that his son was taken, and maybe been told to go find him since they're apparently the only plumbers on the planet. Someone really needs to explain the whole plumber system to me. The only other issue is then how the High Read even knew about Cooper. He's not famous. Even the writers kind of forgot about him. How did the DN aliens know who he was, let alone where to find him? And what was their plan in case someone came looking for him? Many of the DN aliens were originally adults, therefore not many people were looking for them. But Cooper is a child. It's not that easy to just kidnap a child and have no repercussions. Anyway, they go to find Cooper and Ben transforms into Goop to enter a room. And I can't think of a better time to mention how much I hate Goop's voice. You might ask yourself, is there an alien whose voice I actually do like? And the answer is no. I like none of these voices. I either hate them or can tolerate them. And by the way, this is by no means trying to insult the talent behind the majority of these voices. D. Bradley Baker. He has tremendous talent and did an amazing job here. Like the fact that I couldn't even tell that they were all voiced by the same guy is pretty cool. He also voices Appa and Naga, and sometimes I wonder if he knows how to sound like a normal person. There's also this weird interaction between Kevin and Gwen.
Got any spells that'll give us cover so we can get to him?
They're not spells.
I'm not sure why she said that. Half the incantations she uses are from a spellbook.
I still have your old spellbook.
And she has lines in the show like, I learned a new protection spell, or I just used a teleportation spell. So it's a pretty strange exchange here. Anyway, the DN aliens are able to operate in this small town because Cooper built a large cloaking device to cover the town. That could suggest that Cooper has been gone for a while, meaning that his parents just don't love him. Like, yeah, you could argue that he spent a lot of time in his lab, but come on. Building this whole thing could have taken days, if not weeks or more. I'm just saying, let's call CPS. Before Cooper built the large cloaking device, he built a smaller one, which he uses to shield the team so that they're not found by the DN aliens.
Well, before I built the big cloaking projector, I built a smaller one first. A prototype. The field it generates is enough to cover all of us. If we squeeze together real tight.
Oh, for the love of...
Unfortunately, the device glitches and the team gets kidnapped. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin are kept alive so that the DN aliens will have something to hold against Cooper in case he tries to escape again.
Faster!
Cooper had levels of patience that I aspire to have. Like, let him do his job. They literally undid the work that he was doing for them. I'm not gonna lie, if it was me, I'd say kill my friends, I'm out. At least Ben comes up with a pretty smart plan. It involves Kevin being in pain, so you know Ben was proud of that plan.
Now.
Yeah, sorry, this is a callback to earlier in the episode when Ben sees Cooper accidentally crash whatever this metal is, and the Dean aliens don't like it. Although Gwen gets him to open the door by saying she needs to use the bathroom, but I mean, not to be that person, it was just really humane of them to let her leave instead of... Yeah, I think I get the picture. So they save Cooper, again, and they're on their way to crush the cloaking device when Cooper gets, according to my notes, a random vision. Now, I don't know if I called it random because he doesn't get visions that often, and I'm pretty sure that this foresight ability doesn't really come back, or because his vision is so unhelpful. It's a bunch of random clips spiced together, and if I got a vision like that, all I think is, okay, so what am I supposed to do with this? Anyway, they're allowed to leave because, as Kevin puts it...
Who'd believe us if we told what was really going on there?
The plumbers. The plumbers will believe you, but anyway. Also, let's talk about Cooper. Don't be fooled by his build. He's actually roughly the same age as the rest of them. He's just a late bloomer, nothing to be ashamed of there. Although it's giving Momiji Soma. So they describe his powers as the ability to manipulate alien technology, but really I just think he's telekinetic. And I guess he has prediction powers now, but like I said, we don't see them that much, and they're not really helpful. What's funny is that the vision doesn't really help Ben figure out a plan beforehand. Like, he still goes into the battle in the finale without an actual way to resolve things. The next episode, Pet Project, is mainly about Julie and Chip, and I think this is the episode where I started to think all paths lead to Ben. So Gwen and Julie are going shopping.
And then Ben sent me an IM and said he kind of missed me too. That is so sweet.
He said, I kinda miss you too? Let's add something to Ben's file. So it's established later in the episode that Chip has been visiting Julie from time to time, and she kinda trains him like a pet dog. So the Riedel brothers attack, and as I'm saying this, I realize I'm mixing it up with a Chip episode from season 3. The Riedels haven't been introduced yet. I don't want to get into this episode's plot that much. Basically, these guys want to take Chip because he's such a powerful weapon, and Ben thinks that Julie shouldn't keep Chip because he's dangerous. Personally, I think Ben talked down to Julie just a little bit too much in this episode, and he got really angry sometimes. He did need to calm down a bit. Not to mention, if Chip was so dangerous, why did they just let him go in the peer pressure episode?
Julie, we aren't talking about a poodle from the local pound. You don't know what you're dealing with.
But in all fairness, the writers stripped Julie of any rationality in this episode.
Jason, look. This isn't you, okay? This isn't the you that we all know and love.
Technically, in this episode, Julie's motivations are tied to Chip, not Ben, but in the episode I mentioned from season 3, they hinted at a reason why she's so attached to Chip, but let's get there when we get there. This is the next episode, Grounded. We meet Ben's parents, Sandra and Carl. They see him fighting aliens, and they are not having it.
I can't believe it. You look us straight in the eye and lied to us over and over again.
We saw you, Ben. We saw you turn into that thing.
No, you just think you saw.
Not Ben trying to gaslight his parents. He also says the Omnitrix doesn't come off, but it does, and you know what? Come to think of it, in season 3, he knows how to remove it at will, but I don't know when he learned to do that, but anyway, he gets grounded. Ben's dad also mentioned something about Max being a plumber and how he lied to them about it constantly, and it's the fact that at this point Max has been presumed dead, but Carl still holds so much emotion around that. I really wish we'd gotten more of this relationship between Max and his sons in future episodes. Gwen also gets grounded at some point because I guess Ben's parents are snitches. Sandra made Ben snitch on Gwen. She's not grounded because of fighting aliens, but because she didn't snitch on Ben and helped him lie to his parents. It's not her job to snitch, sorry. So Kevin is left alone to go on missions, and the writers and everyone else in the show seem to forget about his intelligence.
Absorb something and bust out of the tank.
Absorb what? Stink?
What's your phone made of?
Titanium, why? Oh.
Like, surely Kevin knows how to use his own powers. Remember in the Plumber's Helpers episode when he just knew to use a change in his pocket to get free? Well, the writers didn't seem to remember that.
Nice to see you again, vermin.
Ben, a little help here.
Dad, no!
Sir, a man is dying. In the end, Ben's like, ugh, I'm over it. Ground me for a year when I get back, and just goes to fight. His parents show up to help him fight with a plumber's gun that Max left in the attic since Frank and Carl were kids. Why is Max leaving weapons in his home with his children? Okay, next up we have an episode called Voided, which is another Ben-focused episode, but unfortunately, it's not that good. Gwen receives a distress signal from Helen in the Null Void. Yep, Manny and Helen are back. Another reason why I don't love this episode. Kevin is instantly turned off to the idea of going back to the Null Void. But can you blame him? Look at this place. So instead, Ben goes by himself to a portal that Gwen can open up. No, Gwen should have gone with him. Especially because when they're done with the mission, she can just open the portal from wherever they are, but now since only Ben went, she seemed to struggle to find Ben's location. I guess they were also using this cable thing to reel him back in, and they only had one, but if something went wrong, which it does, Gwen would be able to just open the portal. But fine, it's Ben by himself. Kevin and Gwen are barely in the rest of the episode. I wrote in my notes that Ben should have gone by herself, both Ben and Gwen is fine, but Ben alone is not, and I stand by this. I also read it's giving Sky Dances, the number 9 cartoon no one watched, and I think I was talking about this. I really do just love giving myself notes without context and hoping future me understands what I mean. Now here's a part of the episode that was just so confuddling. Remember how the episode opens with Helen reaching out to the team for help? Yet when she sees Ben in the null void, she tells him he should go.
Ben, you need to go too. You're too valuable to fall into Devoid's hands.
Why did you ask? One positive of this episode is that they offer more insight into what the null void even is.
No, not a prison. A penal colony. Long ago, the Galvan created this pocket dimension so they could banish their criminals from the universe itself. To some, it was a chance to start again.
So they keep talking about the wrench or something, and Ben has to fight Pierce to get to see the wrench, and apparently Ben lost on purpose so he could get through. Guys, I'm sorry. This episode, it just kills me honestly. Like, what? How? You're in the null void. Why is this even necessary? Okay, I went back and watched this episode again, and they're fighting because Pierce thinks Ben is a spy for the Void. This bad guy who's basically taken over the null void. But like, he thinks Ben is a shapeshifter and is therefore skeptical, but we never see any of the Void's spies shapeshifting, so it was just an odd thing. So Ben pretends to lose because a spy would have won. Just not entirely sure how Ben figured that out. And if Ben figured it out, then surely a spy would have as well. Why am I so irritated by this? Oh yeah, this is Pierce, by the way, Helen's brother, somehow. I don't care that much for Pierce. He's a giant walking porcupine who I feel looks similar to Argent in his design, but only slightly. Also very off topic, but you know how Argent and Pierce shoot their quills out like to attack? It made me believe that porcupines could do the same. Then I met one and it just bustled around on the ground not shooting quills or anything. It was so disappointing. Anyway, back to the episode. The wrench turns out to be Grandpa Max. What? He's alive? Who would have guessed? This is another reason why Gwen should have also gone. Max is her grandpa too. This moment is also important for her. Max explains he was supposed to leave the null void, but when he saw the Guardians weren't working properly, he stayed behind to fix things. That's all well and good, but you couldn't have come back with reinforcements? You couldn't have sent some kind of signal home so people aren't prepping for your funeral? In terms of Pierce, I don't think he gets much screen time after this episode. I'd argue that the plumbers help us just kind of blend into one at some point and are just there for certain fight scenes. I think when Pierce is introduced in season 1 through the videos Helen watches, he seems like the super serious older brother, and in this episode he just comes across as really angry and moody and definitely not what a leader should be. Dr. Animo is the big bad in this episode. He's taking control of the Null Void Guardians and is using this core thing at the center of the Void to power himself. So Ben needs to destroy it and he wants to freeze it, so instead of just turning into Big Chill and then jumping, he does this.
No!
Chill. So dramatic, and for what? I wish this was the last time he jumps off like that. Like, could you imagine if he got the wrong transformation and became, I don't know, humongous and then just got burned alive? Also, poor Max is thinking his grandson died for a moment. I guess that was Ben's payback for Max faking his death and not bothering to inform people that he's not dead. So Gwen manages to open a portal at the moment that Dr. Animo has been defeated. Max chooses to stay in the Null Void, and okay, you know what, can we just talk about Max? I used to watch Downton Abbey before I realized all the characters I loved would be killed off, but when the war started I remember this plotline where Thomas didn't want to fight, so he got himself shot in the hand, and there are like other stories of this, like fictional and non-fictional, where people get injured to avoid fighting in a war. I'm not saying he's harming himself, I'm just wondering if perhaps he'd rather stay in this place with people believing that he's dead, not only just his family but also his employers, so he doesn't have to go back and work for the plumbers. As I've already ranted, it's a pretty odd organization. They recruit children, parents are away for long periods of time on missions, and their children aren't taken care of. It's not outlandish that he would want to get out of that organization. Maybe it would have been cool if one of the antagonists for one of these seasons was the plumbers, and it's about acknowledging that there's some corruption within the system and working to fix that. Outlandish idea, I know, I'm sorry. I'm African. I can't help wanting corrupt systems to be included in movies and series because that's the closest thing I'll get to representation. I need to stop making so many African jokes across my videos. I feel like people won't get that I'm kidding. Our next episode is called Inside Man. And not too much to say about this one. There's this guy Tyler who finds the DNA aliens working, so he goes to report at the sheriff's office. And they think he's crazy, so they lock him in a cell, but one of them secretly makes a phone call. Surely if the plumbers are in charge of like alien encounters, they should have made a deal with law enforcement. Okay, later in UA they say the plumbers are recognized by law enforcement, but I think these moments were forgotten about when that line was written. And I mean, I don't know how sheriffs work, but if someone comes in and reports something and you don't believe them, why do you lock them up? He's not being aggressive, I don't get it. So in the holding cell, he's attacked by DNA aliens, and you need to pay attention to this part. The team finds him and he explains what he learned. The DNA aliens are looking for something they call the key, which Tyler has, but his memory's fuzzy. Yeah, so they don't really give us more clues other than the fight in the holding cell, but Tyler is not what he seems.
The whole hybrid fleet's gonna invade and destroy the Earth. I remember.
Yeah, and I think I know why you remember.
Ben figured it out? What a strange episode. Essentially, Tyler was turned into a DNA alien and was supposed to transport the key, but as he was driving, his consciousness began to fight back, which caused a confusion. Not a terrible episode. Oh, and Ben cures Tyler with the power of the main character, the Omnitrix, and we don't see Tyler ever again. The next episode, entitled Birds of a Feather, messed me up the first time I watched it. It starts off with the team on their way to some location they received a tip about. Kevin points out that it seems like a trap, to which Ben responds,
You think it's a trap? I could just keep driving. No, somebody went to a lot of trouble to get us here. Let's play it out.
Okay. Obviously they get attacked. There were just a bunch of DNA aliens hiding in this truck waiting to ambush the team. They start fighting and Ben turns into Spider Monkey conveniently because that's how our new character can make an entrance.
Man, I've never seen you fight like that. Ben?
This is Simeon, and don't be fooled by the odd reason he chose to chatter to Gwen and Kevin. He speaks English quite well. He says he has no idea what the DNA aliens are, but saw people in trouble and intervened. Before I talk about Simeon's backstory, I want to bring up this thing they find that they think is an ear cleaner because it's part of what happens at the end that just traumatized me.
It fell off one of those DNA aliens. I'm trying to figure out what it does.
Grandpa used something like this to clean his ears. You press down on this and boric acid solution comes...
So Simeon's backstory. I can't play the clip here because it's too long, so I'll just read it to you. We call my planet Arachna. There's a legend we have about someone called Jafret. He was leading the Arachna chimps against an army of aliens. He was totally outnumbered. It looked hopeless, until he saw light coming from a cave. Inside he found a crystal refracting light from the enemy's campfires. He saw that the cave was really a natural tunnel that led to the aliens' rear flank. He led the army through the tunnel in a sneak attack. They were able to drive off the aliens, but it never would have happened without that crystal. Jafret was crowned king of Arachna, and the crystal became the symbol of our monarchy. My father, the king, died suddenly when I was finishing school, but just as I was about to be crowned, the crystal disappeared. People thought it was a sign that I didn't deserve to be king. A military dictator took over. So basically, Simeon needs the crystal to become king. Ben then tries to convince Kevin and Gwen that Simeon can be trusted, although they still have their reservations. Ben then says that Simeon is like him.
He's just a kid. His father's gone now and he has to step up. Sound familiar? He's just like me!
A, way to make it about yourself, Ben. B, you have a dad, he's alive and well, and so is Grandpa Max, he's gonna return at some point, but Simeon's dad is never coming back. So they go to this fortress on the moon to find the diamond, and Simeon has suits on his ship that fit the team perfectly aside from the extra sleeves.
What are we supposed to do with the extra arms?
You never used to have a problem figuring out what to do with your arms. That's what the girls say.
Which girls?
I feel like that's a dirty joke, but honestly I can't explain what it's suggesting. Like, it feels dirty but at the same time not. At some point when they're moving through the fortress, Ben and Simeon get stuck in this compressor thing, and while they're struggling to hold the walls up, Kevin calls in to check on them. Ben can't answer because he's not holding down the button, so Kevin says, "Aight, if I've heard no response, I guess there isn't an issue." Guys, come on, he's not that dumb. Like, what was the point of even including this scene? Also, there's a guard here, like one organic guard. The others are robots. He looks like an alien from Lilo and Stitch, and Simeon almost killed him.
Ben, I think this guy needs to chill out. What do you think?
I think I hate puns. And I know I don't like to freeze people.
Then I'll do it myself.
Sir was just trying to do his job. Also, Ben loves puns. He makes them all the time.
I know. Chill, dude. Ha, see what I did there?
I do not.
I made a little pun, see?
So I'm just gonna spoil this for you and tell you that Simeon isn't who he claims to be. Ben gets suspicious when at some point in the episode, Simeon calls the air cleaner a DNA alien resin remover after he claimed not to know what the DNA aliens are. But I got suspicious when at some point he says this line.
I'll show them. I'll show them all.
Like, you don't say that when you're a good guy. And also this backstory of his, I don't even know how to describe how silly it is, because he really could have just said, this diamond was stolen from my people, I need to get it back to become king. I understand that he was manipulating Ben by appealing to the fact that he's also just a kid who had so much responsibility thrown onto him, but did he need to make up such a complex world history? Like, was Simeon an aspiring fantasy writer when the DNA aliens found him, and chose to include his story in his con? So he was hired by the DNA aliens to steal the diamond because it powers his communicator, therefore if it's gone, Earth won't be able to reach out for help when the hybrid invade.
You don't deserve to be king!
Idiot! I made up all that stuff.
Guys, we saw how well Simeon fought. There is no way Ben's 15-year-old scrawny human body could hold Simeon down. Simeon escapes. The team gets a ride back to Earth on a ship they borrowed from the guard, but Simeon failed. They'd put the air cleaner in the box instead of the diamond, and this is how the hybrid reacts.
We distinctly told you to bring us the crystal. Maybe you didn't hear us. Maybe you need to have your ears cleaned.
Guys, this is a kid's show. Like, in case you think I'm overreacting, just remember what this thing did to the floor. The metal floor. Yeah, characters have died in kids' entertainment, but something about this feels really graphic. And what makes this even worse for me is that, contrary to what you may think, Simeon isn't dead. He survived that. He went through all that pain and didn't have the luxury of dying later. He just had to endure it all and then recover. Also, was this hybrid listening in on the team thinking that the resin remover was an air cleaner? Like, how did he know to make that reference? I think this episode as a whole is one of the better ones. Like, the premise is really interesting. I just wish that Gwen and Kevin weren't so suspicious of Simeon. I wish that maybe he had tried to charm them too and win them over or something like that. It would have been nice if he had moments where his true personality shown, like expressing joy, genuinely bonding with the group, so the audience could feel the betrayal. Next episode, on Earth, there is this monster creature walking around terrorizing civilians. Okay, here's the thing. If you are ever driving on the road and you see something weird, look at it through your rearview mirror as you speed away. Do not stop. So the team goes to investigate the disturbances. Ben thinks it must be a DNA alien because what else is that strong? Let's think about what else could be that strong. A hybrid, a Plummus kid we haven't met yet, and literally any alien from the show or ones we just haven't seen. Gwen tracks the monster using a traffic light that it broke. They find the monster and Ben and Kevin fight it. There's a point where it gets distracted and instead of just leaving it be, they attack it.
He's going for a weapon!
Bro, what? Now you might be wondering, where is Gwen? And to be honest, I don't know what she was doing, but I know what she does. She basically stops this whole fight because she figures out that the monster, later going by Tiny, is just a baby, and to be specific, a baby girl.
What makes you think it's a girl?
Yeah, if it was a girl, it would have a big bow on the side of its head or something.
You didn't pay much attention in health class, did you?
This is funny, but I still don't understand how Gwen worked out that Tiny's a girl. In this episode, Gwen took a more maternal role and showed compassion for Tiny, and I personally think it was a good direction to go for this episode. She's able to calm her down, and Tiny listens to her when she says things like, "Let me go," or "Don't eat that." For whatever reason, Tiny sees Gwen in her anodyne form. At some point, Ben says that they're fighting an intergalactic threat, the DNA aliens and the hybrid, therefore they don't have time to worry about Tiny. Sir, are you not a plumber? This is your job, you can't pick and choose your responsibilities. The DNA aliens are after Tiny, and therefore Ben deems it okay to sort Tiny out, but Ben. That comment was irresponsible. So basically, Tiny and her parents crashed on Earth in 1952 because of the anomaly from Paradox's episode with the time travel experiment, and had been hibernating in this cave, but the DNA aliens started drilling in the cave mining quartz, so Tiny's pod was damaged, causing her to wake up. Ben asks why their translators aren't working on Tiny, although I didn't see them try to use the translators on it like they did for the dragon, but anyway. Tiny's parent explains that Tiny is just a baby. Tiny and her family say goodbye to the team, and as they fly away, she says her first words.
Baby's first word. I wonder what it means.
Very cute. But in other news, it's finally here. War of the Worlds Part 1, the hybrid DNA alien finale. And let me tell you, the first part starts off with a bang, because who's the first character we see? Azimuth technically, but right afterwards is Paradox. Right, so like I said, I'll finally explain what the hybrid's plan is.
The hybrid attack plan has worked on a dozen worlds. They send a small number of hybrid to the target planet.
then infiltrate the locals by turning them into DNalien slaves.
And use the slaves to build a jump gate.
Oh, thanks for summing that up for me. I'm gonna be being sarcastic. I was so confused watching the first 2 seasons because the DNaliens is doing something for some reason and I wouldn't understand. Anyway, this is also the episode where Gwen calls Kevin by his full name for the first time.
Hey!
Kevin Ethan Levin, you come with us right now.
Ethan? Your name is Kevin E. Levin? You just lost all remaining pretense of cool.
Top tier right there. I love these names. So Gwen and Kevin go on a recruiting mission to get all the Plumbers kids, while Ben and Azimuth have a talk. Oh, and Paradoxus kind of hangs around. So they get Alan, Cooper... I thought the list would be longer. They also release Michael from the Null Void, which he's been in since the beginning of Season 2. Voided is the 8th episode of Season 2. Surely he should have had something to do with that episode? Yeah, he was probably put into a prison, but it's not like the Null Void Guardians were working properly. He could have escaped just like Dr. Animo. They basically say, yo, help us fight the DNaliens and you're free. And he's like, aight. So Michael's free now. Meanwhile, Azimuth is lecturing Ben. But first, all he's saying is this is going to be such a dangerous mission. And I was just thinking, did you seriously pause the entire finale for just that? Basically, he doesn't want Ben to be in the final battle. He explains that the Watch has DNA from over 1 million different species. Should those species be wiped out, the Omnitrix is supposed to repopulate it. He says, and I quote, "It's Noah's Ark, you're Noah." I just don't like that line. I really wish I could explain why. But why did he try to send it unaccompanied to Max Tennyson? Like, surely if this was a blueprint for all life in the universe, you shouldn't even be using it as a weapon. Also, why didn't Azimuth take the watch back when Ben took off the watch when he was 10? Ben kept it in a toy box. Since Ghost Freak left the Omnitrix, does that mean that if whatever his species is called were to go extinct, then too bad for them? And how does that work? Like, yeah, some aliens from the Omnitrix can just get out and kind of be sentient, but not more than 1 from each species. Let's say if all 1 million of these species reproduce asexually, which I know obviously is not the case. In that scenario, to repopulate the species, there would have to be inbreeding. No. In the second half of the finale, Azimuth says that the hybrid are dying out for a couple of reasons, one of which being inbreeding. I'm thinking too much. Ben refuses not to fight. Don't like that double negative. Ben refuses to listen, and we get this exchange where Azimuth says he won't allow it. And Ben's like, what are you going to do about it? Then Azimuth is like, I'll take the Omnitrix from you. But Ben holds his hand over the Omnitrix and says, you'll try. So Azimuth is like, aight, fine. Let me just give you full control then. Like, that was easy. Azimuth explains that the Omnitrix has several menus of 10 aliens because there are like 1 million aliens to choose from. But as he's explaining this, Ben cuts him off.
The Omnitrix's menus are arranged in sets of 10 for simplicity's sake. But with voice command, you can...
Got it.
Shut up, Ben. Also, during the argument, Azimuth flips his mustache, which is the best thing I have ever seen on television. I can't breathe. I love this so much. Azimuth sticks around for the battle, and I'm not entirely sure why. Like, no offense, he's very smart and all, but Sir was embarrassing himself for this fight scene. So the Avengers assemble. Again, I thought there would be more of them, but that's alright. Julie's also here. Ben asks her this.
Julie, what are you doing here?
You need help.
And you can help how?
It's a valid point, I just feel like there were nicer ways to ask that question. What's upsetting is that Julie is not actually here to bring in any useful skills. She was actually just here to bring Ship. Like, she sticks around, don't misunderstand me, and I guess you could say she trained Ship and that's her talent, but at that point we're grasping at straws. Like, if she showed up and was like, here's Ship, be careful, then went home, it wouldn't have really taken that much away from the finale. Also, does Alan or Heat Blast just take random pieces of the road off and then never put them back? And can he not fly without the piece of land that he flies on? And because he's manipulating this platform, does that mean that he's telekinetic? So they have this cool moment where they're walking down the road looking all tough, but all I wanted to know was if they were gonna walk to Los Soledad or not. But they drove. They were walking for the simple reason to look cool. Like, look, they walk away from Kevin's car. So did they walk and then Ben said, okay, that's enough, let's turn back and get in the car? So they get to Los Soledad, and Ben gives a pep talk about the fight. Ben then selects an alien from the classic Ben 10 menu, and we get a return of...
Cannonbolt!
Haven't seen him for a while.
What can I say? I'm feeling nostalgic.
Funny enough, I don't hate his voice that much. Oh, and this is another time they didn't give Gwen stockings. Okay, I know I've been criticizing, but let me tell you, I cannot hate on this fight scene. Like, look at this. The animators collected their paychecks. Ben cures some DNaliens, but he's like, there's too many of them. I'm sorry, is this not your speed? Sorry. Cooper then somehow figures out how to reverse the polarity or some nonsense and basically makes this. Can you guys just watch the scene? I guess no one's gonna ask how he figured that out. See what I mean? He couldn't have stayed in the car or something. There's this one bit where a DNA alien speaks to one of the hybrids, and usually when the DNA alien speaks, their voice is kind of crackly, like the voice acted desperately to clear their throat. But here they just sounded kind of normal and clear.
Our forces are routed, Master. I do not think we can stop them.
That's not important. What's important is that they finally get to the jump gate, which is basically this giant portal arch thing, and they try to destroy it, but it's too strong. I didn't know why they didn't try damaging the red lights, or why Kevin didn't at the very least try to absorb this material and maybe make a dent, but anyway. Ben transforms into Waybig for the first time, and I just have to ask, who's responsible for this name? Waybig? Come on. Unfortunately, the jump gate just kind of shocks Ben, and he passes out as the hybrid invade. Part 2 begins right where we left off, with Ben passed out. Won't be the last time he passes out in this episode. They then ask him what the plan is, and to be honest, I kind of felt bad for him here. Like, why did it need to be up to him? He just passed out. What, was he supposed to come up with something while he was unconscious? Anyway, Michael has some snarky remarks to make.
Got it! We break into the hybrid control room and force the hybrid captain to make his ship's retreat.
That's your big plan?
Hey, how many times have I beaten you?
Twice. But just at this moment, I can't imagine how.
Okay, can we just get something straight here? Because Kevin also said something like that in the first part. Kevin says he can't take credit for Michael being in the null void because Ben did that. And here Ben says that he beat Michael twice. The second battle with Michael was really a team effort. They were basically playing ping pong with this guy. Yeah, Ben delivered the final blow by jumping on his chest as Humongous saw, and I personally found that a little over the top. Michael was already down. And the first battle with Michael, Ben and Kevin lost, and who beat Michael? Gwen. I'm not sure people forgot that. Sorry, that was a detour. Ben's new plan is to go to the command center and order the hybrid to stop. His plan is literally to go to a hybrid and be like, stop, or else. On their way to the control center, Kevin puts his car on auto attack mode. He'd installed a bunch of alien tech in the car, and he basically sacrificed it. Like, this might be the saddest moment on the show, but don't worry, nothing stays dead. So the team storms into the control center while the rest continue curing DNA aliens, and let me tell you something that irritates me in this series. It's when they literally only refer to Ben. To be honest, many of the hybrids and DNA aliens call Ben by his full name, but I don't understand why. He introduces himself to Riley in Season 2, Episode 2, and doesn't seem like Riley even knew that was his name. And Riley didn't go back to the other hybrids, so how did they know his name? But the irritating thing is that Gwen and Kevin are literally given a whole backseat. And we'll talk about it more in future seasons, like when Ben's identity is exposed, but here the hybrid only speaks to Ben, only addresses Ben, and says something like, take care of the other two, leave Ben 10 to me. So they all fight, and at some point Kevin is down, and the hybrid is like to Gwen, hey, I'm gonna kill him first so that you can watch. That's a pretty personal thing to do to people whose names you don't even know. Gwen tries to stop him, but she's used a lot of her power and is weak, so she transforms into her Anodyte form.
So much power!
Gwen, listen to me. You've got to shut it down.
No! I think I can defeat the hybrid. All by myself.
Your grandmother said it would take at least 75 years for you to master that power.
We don't have 75 years.
You'll lose your humanity. You won't remember Ben or me.
Guys, I had to roll my eyes here. Gwen barely did anything. She wasn't even out of control. And what's this you'll lose your humanity thing? If the writers wanted to show why she doesn't ever use this ability often or something, then just, I don't know, say that it exhausts her, like the Avatar state or Anne's powered form or something. Osmosians are the ones who lose control when they come into contact with too much power. The idea of Gwen's power overwhelming her hasn't really been brought up. Grandpa Max, Helen Pierce, and Manny show up in the nick of time to help. The hybrid explains that even if he wanted to call off the invasion, he's not in charge. He really said, speak to my supervisors. And so that's Ben's plan. Go to the hybrid's planet through the jump gate and say stop or else. But first...
Ben!
He just had to be dramatic. They get to planet, and because of a crash landing, Ben's knocked out. Again. Oh, also Asmus tags along. He says it's because he's supervising the Omnitrix, but Gwen's like, oh, you care about Ben. Ben wakes up in a prison where Gwen and Kevin are awake. I mention this because it doesn't even seem like they passed out. Gwen knows what happened to them and where ship went while Ben was passed out. Also, remember Gwen has laser eyes? And she can also use her legs for powers. Does that sound weird? Also, Kevin's hands are literally touching the material, and it doesn't seem like these restraints can restrain their powers. And the thing is, they break out as soon as Ben wakes up, so what was the point of this whole prison thing? Anyway, they go to meet the Council of Hybrids or something.
Don't be fooled by his posturing, Ben. They aren't attacking because of their supposed superiority. They're attacking because they're dying out. Their ridiculous belief in racial purity led to inbreeding, a loss of resistance to disease, and finally sterility. This is the last generation of hybrids, is it not?
Ben tells the Omnitrix to repair the genetic damage to the hybrid. It literally then sends out this wave that cures every hybrid, even the ones on Earth because of the jump gate.
Program complete. All hybrid and range of transmission are now genetically fused with random species from Omnitrix database.
Random? Gee, I'm glad the Omnitrix was delicate and deliberate in what it was doing. Why Ben couldn't have done this to cure the DNA aliens is beyond me. So the hybrid are understandably mad that their DNA was literally altered without their consent. Like, how would you feel if some random boy found out you're infertile, walked into your house, and turned you into a rat hybrid? The hybrids say there's only one honorable act left for them. Yep. Now guess who shows up to be like, nah guys, actually having your DNA mixed with that of an inferior species isn't that bad, and basically stops them from committing mass S-side.
No! There is another way!
It's Rhynie!
It is decided. The High Council elects you Hybrid Supreme. Lead us wisely.
See what I mean? The power of friendship, guys. And after this, everything is really just resolved. Like, no other hybrid contest this or seem upset or go rogue. Nope, everyone's just happy. We're not gonna mention how in the wrong the hybrids were. Like, they don't pay for the damage, not that we've seen at least. They aren't really punished for what they did. Just in case you've forgotten some of the stuff they've done, let me just list it for you. They tried to kill children on more than one occasion, abducted and enslaved a child at some point, enslaved innocent civilians across galaxies. Do I need to go on? And finally, at the end of this episode, we get a return of one of my favorite characters.
I've got to go home. Since it's not the end of the world, I'm still under curfew.
I promise you that Girl's Curfew has more of a personality than she does. And thus ends Ben 10 Alien Force. What am I saying? This is what I get for listening to the Spirit soundtrack as I work. The triumphant symphony of I'll Always Return got me so emotional. I was like, wow, I'm already done with the first Alien series. No, we're not done. There's still season 3. I really hope you can forgive me for that mistake. In my defense, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between UA and Season 3 of A-Force. Going into Season 3, I realized there were quite a few episodes that I'd always just thought were from UA. The Season 2 finale really just felt like the end of the series. The fact that Season 3 is a departure from the structured alien invasion plot, and Gwen's design looks quite similar to her UA look, only add to my confusion. Not to mention, I feel like A-Force Season 1 and 2 is just set at night. Like, you see daylight maybe like 5 times. Meanwhile, Season 3 opens with an episode set mostly in the daytime. Even the final battle of the Season 3 premiere happens during the day, and there's a significant amount of daylight throughout the series. It's strange. Also, there's a lot of weird exposition in the first episode of Season 3, like Gwen calls Ben and says, "Hi, it's your cousin Gwen," and Azimuth says something like, "Yes, it is I, Azimuth, the creator of the Omnitrix," but it's like, you know who they are? I'm just saying it felt like the beginning of a new series. Also, Season 3 is full of a lot more filler, and I'm not usually someone who's very fond of filler episodes, but I'll say that the Alien series always kept it interesting. That and the fact that from this point, many of the non-filler episodes are focused on Vilgax, so I really like the filler episodes. Before we start Season 3, I just want to briefly talk about the Omnitrix. Obviously, I shouldn't be thinking about this too hard, but I just need to get this off my chest. So when you hear that someone has the ability to transform into any alien with the use of his watch, and when Azimuth says that the watch contains the DNA of all the different aliens that Ben can transform into, and when you see this, what's this? This is a transformation sequence. When you understand all this, you might think that Ben is transforming into these aliens, and if he is, how are they able to leave the Omnitrix because it keeps happening? And don't misunderstand me, it's cool, it's really interesting when he has to catch them all when they become the villain, but like, why? If they wanted certain aliens like Ghost Freak to get out because there's more drama that way, then why wouldn't the Omnitrix be essentially like a storage space for all these different aliens, and Ben transfers his consciousness into them? This could easily explain how all the aliens get out in the Season 3 premiere. But yeah, it doesn't really make any sense, I'm sorry. It doesn't ruin the enjoyment of the show, but I really had to try so hard not to think about it that much. Also, I know it's a running gag in the show that Ben sometimes gets the wrong transformation, but like, it gets a little overdone in my opinion, mainly because you can always tell when it's gonna happen. Seriously, this is a rule that hardly ever fails. If he says Humongousaur before he transforms, he won't get Humongousaur. But if he says, "This is a drop 4, hits the watch, Humongousaur," then he's probably gonna get what he wanted. But another issue with this is that in the original series it was fine because he only had like 10 minutes as an alien, and he couldn't switch aliens in the middle of a transformation. I'm also pretty sure he couldn't transform back at will, like he had to wait for the time to run out, but I could be wrong. The point is that firstly, he has more than 10 minutes now, and he can switch between transformations. Like, we've seen him do it. He just doesn't do it whenever he gets the wrong transformation. Maybe he can't switch back if he gets the wrong one, but I feel like that wasn't made clear enough. Anyway, Season 3. We open on a planet, and then we see Vilgax. Nope, no, I'm not doing this, no. I'm done. I'm going to sleep. I'm done. I'm not doing it. Anyway, so I don't know if you caught on to this. I don't really like Vilgax. The first episode of the season is called Vengeance of Vilgax Part 1. This is hilarious because he's always out for revenge, which is part of the reason I can't stand his character. Like seriously, anytime this man was on screen, I literally felt my life shortening. During exams, I'd be watching a bunch of Ben 10 episodes in a row, working diligently, and then I'd come across an episode of Vilgax and instantly laptop shut, books closed, time to go bother one of my housemates. In fact, I literally took a 2-week-long break from writing the script because I just could not write my Vilgax notes into a Vilgax mini-essay. You might be thinking, why do I hate Vilgax so much? It's a good question that has multiple answers. There are so many reasons to hate this character. His voice, his looks, his personality, but for this episode, I'll just say that my issue with him is his power. Like really, his main power is super strength. Over the course of the series, he has laser vision and this shield thing which might be a power, or maybe it just stems from his suit. The point is that in my opinion, as a character, he's not really that interesting anyway. In this episode, I'm getting tired from even reading this part of the script. Basically, Vilgax has been going planet to planet, defeating their heroes and taking their powers, and now he feels that he's confident enough to defeat Ben Tennyson.
Congratulations, Lord Vilgax, conqueror of 10 worlds.
Only 10 worlds? Huh, I thought it would have been more than that. I don't know, 10 seems like such a small number to be making a big deal about. So we next see Gwen and Kevin fighting the serpent monster and not doing as great as they'd hoped. This is a very clear moment of the writers giving Ben too much credit and not enough credit to Kevin and Gwen. Where's Ben, you might ask? In bed, at home watching TV. He gets a message from someone from another planet who gives him a medal as thanks. We're not going to talk about the fact that he kinda just intruded on a child in his bedroom. Like, this is low-key terrifying. Does Ben change clothes in his closet with the door closed in case someone drops in unannounced? We see Ben put the medal in a closet full of other trophies, showing the audience that he's kind of over all the praise and gratitude he's getting. Now I feel like this moment could have added something to Ben's character for season 3. That maybe he's feeling a little burned out. He's received so much praise that it's kind of numbed him. To spoil the end of Alien Force, he makes a very impactful decision concerning the Omnitrix, but I personally feel that if the build-up to that moment was handled a little differently, it would have had a better impact. I could have felt sympathy for Ben here if this behavior was treated more like feeling empty, rather than he was just so bored from all the praise and glorification. It would have been nice if maybe he gave some of those trophies to the other people who fought in the battle. Just a suggestion, no one asked me. I noted one of the highlights of this episode being Ben's scream when he finds out that there's going to be a Sumo Slammers movie.
Sumo Slammers, the motion picture.
Top tier, I don't know what else to say.
There's going to be a Sumo Slammers movie.
Really? Live action?
Yeah, Kevin, don't be too excited about a live action remake. They don't have the best track record, especially the one that the show is likely nodding to. Yeah, there's a scene later on where this is a little clearer, but for now I'll just say that Sumo Slammers is kind of a parody of Ben 10, but we'll get there. And when we get there, we'll also talk about how Kevin didn't seem to care that much about Sumo Slammers.
I am Serpent, the snake that walks like a man.
But it doesn't walk like a man. Ben finally joins the fight with Gwen and Kevin, transforms into Cannonbolt, and defeats Serpent instantly. What are they doing with the body though? From the way it was framed, it felt more like Ben was just better than Gwen and Kevin, but what doesn't make any sense is that at some point Kevin has Serpent pinned down and is throwing punches, but Serpent is able to dodge them. Even Gwen throws those pink blast things very quickly, but Serpent dodged it. My point is, if you can dodge a punch thrown inches from your face and pink light beams moving this fast, then surely you can dodge some giant ball rolling in your direction from a couple of spaces away. Like, you have the reflexes. You could argue that maybe Serpent was a little worn out. Gwen stated that they'd been fighting for like an hour, but it's never really confirmed that Ben defeated Serpent just because Serpent was tired. I don't really get why they needed Ben here. Don't misunderstand me, Ben should have shown up, but they could have defeated him without Ben's help. Vilgax lands on Earth and there's this small fight between him and the Plumber's kids as well as Max, but Vilgax defeats them instantly. He basically says he's just there to announce that he's challenging Ben to this duel. I think like a conqueror's battle or something. If Ben wins, Vilgax won't be allowed to return to Earth and Ben becomes the ruler of his world and Vilgax's. And if he fails, then Earth belongs to Vilgax. What? What's so irritating about this is, did Earth even agree to this? This is literally not condemning the conquering of other worlds belonging to aliens who are a lot weaker than others. Like, surely this rule should be put there to protect everyone who's agreed to it. Why would any planet agree to this rule that a planet of giants can just show up and be like, you're small, you belong to us now? And surely this wouldn't allow a child, a minor, to hold the fate of their planet in their hands. So the Galvan were the ones who set this up so that there wouldn't be any unnecessary bloodshed and destruction in interplanetary wars. So it's like, instead instead of an army from one planet fighting an army from another planet, they have one person from each planet fight each other to decide the fate of the planets. But surely, like, just hear me out. If you could put a treaty together to stop needless destruction, why not just put one together to stop planets from invading other planets? Like, what if there's a rule of, okay, if you're in this alliance and a planet invades, you now have the support of other planets in the alliance. And, oh, I just realized I'm asking for an intergalactic NATO. Whoops. It's a kid's show. It's a kid's show. Meanwhile, the team are having smoothies. I love that. I love that there's literally a Titan just terrorizing people across the street, and the person he was sending the message to is just chilling, drinking a smoothie. To my dismay, Gwen and Kevin barely stay mad at Ben. He doesn't even really apologize, he's just like, guys, we saved the universe, we should be allowed to chill. I'll pay for your smoothies. Then Gwen throws a smoothie on him and they're good. When Ben hears about the challenge, he's like, aight, cool, got this in the bag. When Max is like, nah dude, Vilgax is actually a lot stronger than you think. Ben's like, aight, cool, I got this. Ben also claims that he won't have an issue when the Plumbers Helpers did because, and I quote, we're the A-team. I aspire to have Ben's humility. Ben insists that he's got it, but Kevin's like, hey, let me hack your watch to remove the security measures that stop you from accessing every alien. And so, Kevin and Ben attempt to hack the watch, but Gwen's kind of unsure about it. Let's pay attention to the way this whole thing plays out. When they first try to hack it, Azimuth, Credo the Omnitrix, shows up through some hologram thing and is like, I know what you're doing, stop it, I'm not playing. So Kevin's like, message received, you don't have to tell me twice. Ben, on the other hand, thinks this is a test and Azimuth just wants him to disobey to prove he's worthy of the Omnitrix's power. Sir, what? Before Gwen and Kevin can stop him, he turns the machine back on. Kevin tries to turn it off, but there's a system overload. Ben then says something like, it's gonna blow, run for it. But what does Kevin do? He rushes in to help Ben. Let us pause for a moment and let that sink in. He went in to help Ben. He could have taken cover, but instead he tried to help Ben. There's then an explosion and we fade to black. End of part 1. If you've already watched this series, then you probably know where this is going. Yep, in part 2 we see that Kevin gets turned, as they say in the show, into a monster.
Smash. Susie!
Okay, but like in all seriousness, he doesn't look that bad. Occasionally when watching the series, I just kind of thought he looks better like this. Okay, sometimes. It also helps that personally I wasn't loving his new outfit for the season. Like, yeah, you see it from time to time in other episodes, but he mainly looks like this. I'm not trying to invalidate Kevin's feelings about his appearance though. Like, I also have to remind myself that he doesn't only look like he's made of organic material, he is made up of inorganic materials like wood, stone, and tatanite. He also can't change back or absorb new materials. But Kevin does get a couple of upgrades in his powers now. Like he can transform his hands into different shapes like a hammer, a mallet, the thing at the end of a medieval flail, and scissors. Back to the episode though. Gwen shows Kevin what he looks like, and he hits her hand. That's not attractive. That's problematic. One might even call it questionable. But I'd say it's a little more than that. Kinda wish it wasn't here. It's also the fact that throughout this season, guys, Kevin treated Gwen like trash. He was like, ugh, I'm ugly, nobody loves me. Meanwhile, Gwen is out there showing him love, giving him love, treating him like a human being. There were many times in these episodes where it felt like Kevin was using his form as an excuse for bad behavior, and even when it's all resolved, I don't think Kevin apologized enough, to be honest. Oh, and what's Ben doing during all of this? He's not fazed by Kevin and Gwen panicking in the background. He literally wasn't even paying attention.
It must be feedback from the watch like the last time.
But Ben knows a lot more about the Omnitrix now. Maybe he can do something, right, Ben? Ben?
Huh? Gwen, look at this!
Azimuth then shows up one last time, by the way, he's on most of the episodes of season 3 for this reason, to tell Ben how to catch the aliens before saying, listen, I warned you. This is what you deserve. I told you not to tamper with the Omnitrix, yet you did. So clearly the opinion of the mastermind behind the device I have so graciously allowed you to keep means nothing to you. Therefore, I won't waste my breath anymore. You're on your own. I'm done helping you. Okay, that's not exactly what he said, but it's along the same lines, and it's what I would have said if I was Azimuth. And how does Ben respond to this?
I shall not help you again.
You call that help?
Wow, such growth, very mature.
Hey Kevin, why don't you change back to normal? You've been ugly for like 40 miles.
It's the fact that this was all Ben's fault. Ben and Kevin asked him not to do it, and Kevin is like this because he was trying to help Ben after it started to go wrong. He didn't run and save himself, he helped Ben. Ben doesn't even acknowledge this. He even goes so far as blaming Kevin for the whole ordeal, and Kevin gets over it way too quickly. I'd like to believe that the writers also had a Vilgax intolerance while writing these episodes, because Vilgax really only shows up in the second half of this episode. In the meantime, the explosion caused some of Ben's aliens to get out of the Omnitrix, because they can just do that, I guess. So the first part of the episode is dedicated to fighting and catching Chromastone, Spider Monkey, Goop, and Waybig. The writers knew for a fact that these fight scenes were better than the fight scene that would happen with Vilgax. My only question is why the aliens just immediately start attacking. Like, half the time they haven't even been provoked. They're just like, I choose violence. Gwen says without Ben's guiding intelligence, the aliens are just instinct. But why is their instinct just straight up violence? Like, this was so clear when they try to catch Goop and he does this to Ben.
Are you sorry you blew us up?
Her, maybe. You, not so much.
Like, what instinct is that? Sir did not hold back. Also, at some point, Ben and Kevin have this interaction.
You should be worried. Those heroes he beat, now he has all their powers too.
Not to mention that your Omnitrix is busted. You broke it!
What?
You broke it and turned me into this!
Kind of an improvement if you ask me.
What? Okay, I know I said something along those lines earlier, but only I can say that. Are you guys seeing why I can't stand Ben? Yeah, Kevin called him out for being the one who broke his watch, but it's the fact that Ben forgot in the first place. How are you that arrogant that you've forgotten all of this is your fault? If he truly felt an ounce of guilt about this, he wouldn't throw it back to Kevin in an argument like that. Especially because I'd argue Kevin wasn't even attacking Ben. He was just like, yeah, your watch isn't working, and you have a pretty big fight coming up. Ben really wants to use Waybig for the fight with Vilgax because, obviously. But I think the writers were like, nah, that would be too easy. So Waybig is the last alien they find, and only comes in right at the end. And even then, Ben doesn't really use him because he got the wrong transformation. Never mind the fact that he can change transformations. So yeah, I guess we have to talk about Vilgax now. Here's his card. Didn't have fun making it.
Ben 10, I've come to kill you and conquer your world. Is now a bad time?
I'm not gonna give Vilgax the benefit of laughing at that joke. At some point in the fight, this happens.
I have it, Master. The Omnitrix. This entire world belongs to you.
Diamond Head.
Don't ask me how that happened. There's an episode later on called The Secret of Chromastone that might explain what happened, but to be honest, I still don't get it. So Ben becomes Diamond Head and Vilgax is defeated. I don't know how to feel about that. It just felt like Vilgax was defeated too easily. Like, he seemed strong enough to lift diamonds off him in the beginning. He's literally fire resistant. He survived several close range explosions. And perhaps my biggest issue with the show is this two-part episode. This isn't a moment where I'm gonna let it slide because it's for kids. The narrative structure doesn't convey the right message. I summed it up in my notes as Ben wasn't humbled. And that's really all there is to it. He starts the episode off thinking he's above it all, and it ends with that being proven to him. There's no payoff, there's no arc. We'll talk about the season finale when we get there because you could argue that was supposed to be the payoff to Ben's arc, but I don't really think it was. He doesn't even properly react to Asmith literally abandoning him. Asmith wasn't kidding. He doesn't help Ben for most of the season, and Ben seems completely unfazed by this. Now, I was so happy watching from episode 3 until episode 9 because Vilgax had nothing to do with it. Many of these episodes are filler, but they were still really, really enjoyable. Season 3, episode 3 is called Inferno, and in it, the team finds this herd of alien cattle led by this thing that was insane, but in a fun way. Listen, all I'll say is he walked so One-Eyed Wally could run. Basically, the cattle normally remains underground, but someone's been causing a disturbance, making them go to the surface. Who's causing this? It's Volcanus, who... Guys, I can't believe I'm reading this. Bought the Earth and was therefore allowed to change its temperature to make it more like his home planet.
And before you know it, I have all the comforts of home.
Wait, home? Where you come from on a cool day, it's 850 degrees.
Uh-huh.
Volcanus, what? He said he got the deed legally, and no one disputes that, but that doesn't really make any sense. Why are people buying and selling planets in this world? I'm not gonna say anymore, I don't take Volcanus seriously, and I'm not supposed to. They obviously saved the day. A highlight of this episode is when Ben tries to transform into Humongosaur, but the Omnitrix has had enough of him.
Hero time! Humongosaur! 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 Ah!
I feel like the Omnitrix and I would be really good friends. So I have this theory. Understanding that the Omnitrix is sentient, petty, and spiteful, and also the main character, it was mad at Ben this season because of the hacking incident at the beginning of the season, which is why Ben getting the wrong transformation happens more frequently in Season 3. Fool's Gold is probably one of my favorite filler episodes. It has a weird plot, but I'd say it was quite creative. Basically, there are these little aliens who have this tradition where they send their young ones to Earth to blow off some steam, kind of like their spring break. They always go to this one small town, but one of them has gone missing, and the team is sent to investigate. They learn that these aliens love to eat popcorn, and they poop gold. What I find really funny about this is just thinking about how this all started. Like, the first of these aliens to arrive on the planet. Imagine you go to a foreign planet and like they feed you and take care of you, then you use a toilet and you find people going through it and keeping it. I'd be like, well, it's time to go. Just imagine one of these things finally humans picking up that. Okay, I think you can stop talking about this. We find out that the alien that went missing was kidnapped by the mayor of this town so that he could personally collect all his poo. Guys, I can't make this up, it's so funny.
This guy's trying to make my sister poo!
He wasn't producing enough, so the mayor fed him meat. But not only does that make them produce toxic waste instead of gold, it turns them into this. Some other things from this episode: Kevin steps in the toxic waste and this happens to him. It had no right being that funny. Also, this episode is kind of a Gwen episode. Kevin's holding this necklace in the beginning, and throughout the episode, Gwen notices that he's avoiding her. In the end, he explains that the necklace is a locket with a picture of him back before he was a monster! Okay, I really do need to stop downplaying Kevin's issues. I think this episode was sweet, but I just wish we could have seen more of him accepting Gwen's love and understanding that he doesn't need to look a certain way to be worthy of love. Sorry, it's a boys' show. I shouldn't be trying to make it girly, because love and acceptance are girly things, of course.
Kevin, you know I don't care what you look like.
Maybe not, but I do.
Come on, Mr. Smoothie!
The next episode, called Simple, is one that constantly reminds me of this line from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Quit trying to interfere with the affairs of our country!
Ben gets this message from a little girl whose planet is at war and wants Ben to go and stop the war. Immediately, this is a terrible idea because it's not great to interfere with such conflicts. In history, quite a few times outsiders have interfered with other countries' beef, and it hasn't ended so well. But this is Ben who we're talking about. Why would he pay attention to history? So he gets involved in the war. There are these red people fighting these blue people. Yep, you've got a race war. Gwen and Kevin go too, but Gwen doesn't really do much. Kevin, on the other hand, meets Argit, who's basically painting red weapons blue and blue weapons red and making profit from the war, and Kevin's like, cool, I want in. At some point, Ben talks to the generals of each side, and this happens.
That's better. Now everybody shake hands. Alright, I'll start.
Ha-ha! There! That proves it! You were with them all along!
What just happened?
You ruined everything! You tried to shake with your right hand! We shake with the left! Everyone knows that!
The little girl is kind of annoying here, but she does have a point. It would have been the bare minimum to do a basic amount of research about these people and their culture, like geez. So things just go downhill from here. Ben makes the generals talk things out, but instead they try and assassinate him. Luckily he turns into goo at the right moment. We'll just move on from the fact that they literally just try to kill a child. They're also beefing because of this statue of their first leader that has oxidized and isn't the same color, so no one knows whether he was red or blue. Anyway, Ben just breaks it.
I've got nothing but time.
Now, if this whole thing was Ben's plan, to anger them so much that these people unite through their hatred of him, then Ben would have been kinda smart. But obviously this wasn't his plan, he's just an idiot. They then just say, you know what, we're done, and they just leave. Kevin ditches the money he'd gotten.
Dear Mr. Ben 10, I don't have a home now. I have to work double time at the factory, and it's all your fault. I finally found something I hate more than war. You. Hey, what's this?
Honey, your planet's still at war. I don't know how much money is helping here. Not one of my favorite episodes, but anyway. The next episode, Riddle, is kind of a Julie episode. We meet the Riddle brothers. They're essentially collectors, although they're just idiots. I'm not very clear on their names. I think the skinnier one is called Optigon, and the larger one is Boy, Boyd, or Void. To be honest, anytime Optigon yelled at his brother, I just thought he was saying boy, like the grandpa from the Boondocks.
Damn it, boy!
But anyway, they've been hired to collect Ship from Julie. The upgrade alien from the peer pressure episode, Baz-El, saw that this extension of himself fought in the war against the hybrid and was like, actually, I want to claim him now. At some point, the team and Julie are talking in the garage, and we get an establishing shot of the garage, which is okay, but then just like mid-conversation, they jump back to that shot. Not sure this was an error or just like a deliberate choice.
Oh, sure. That too.
That sounded sincere.
I say we go right to the source and straighten this whole thing out.
You can't really read that.
The High Court's on the planet Coda. It's kind of far.
That's okay.
Ben and Kevin essentially go to space to see some judge to stop Ship from being taken away, while Gwen and Julie stay on Earth with Ship. They also use a ship they borrowed from the guy on the moon because they never took it back. On the way to the judge, Ben and Kevin talk about Ship and Julia, and on Earth, Gwen and Julie talk about Ship and also just relationships. At some point, Julie asks if Ben even cares about Ship as Julie's pet, or if the only concern he ever shows from him stems from the fact that he's just a powerful weapon. Maybe at the beginning when I said for Julie all paths lead to Ben, you thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. Here in this episode, her story centers around Ship and her connection to him and not Ben. Well, when Kevin and Ben are talking in the spaceship, Kevin suggests that Julie is so connected to Ship because they found him on their first date. Yes, this isn't really a confirmation, but no one on the show disputes this or gives another suggestion for why Julie cares so much for Ship. It's almost like this is what the writers were telling us, meaning that technically her connection to Ship comes from her connection with Ben. And this didn't have to be the case. The part of Kevin saying it's because of their first date could have easily been removed or changed. Like, did it have to go back to Ben? This could have been the perfect opportunity to add something more to her life. Maybe she had a pet for a long time but it recently died, which is why she's so attached to Ship. Maybe her parents work a lot, or she has a sibling that recently moved out or went to college, making her feel lonely in the house, and Ship is like a little companion. Literally anything other than a reminder of her first date with Ben. So as Kevin and Ben go for this hearing, Gwen and Julie are attacked by the Riddle brothers. Ship becomes this armor thing around Julie, turning her into this. I don't want to count this as adding too much to Julie's ability because it's kind of Ship doing all the work. Back to Kevin and Ben. Kevin explains that maybe he should do all the talking, hoping to remain respectful and rational, and Ben's like, nah, I'm Ben Tennyson. I bet you haven't seen Omnitrix up close, and transforms into Humongosaur, causing a wreck. I thought that the judge would have gotten upset, maybe think that Ben was threatening him, and even after Ben transforms back, he doesn't apologize to the judge. In fact, he says, you know these things happen when you're the wielder of the Omnitrix. But what does the judge do? He just says, yeah, Ben wins the case. There's no reason the wielder of the Omnitrix should have to bother himself with petty matters like this. Wow, okay. Also, the judge was so unbelievably rude to Kevin. Kevin did nothing wrong in this scene. He literally remained polite and respectful despite the judge clearly having a bias against him. And this is how the judge treats him after the trial.
Levin?
Ow.
And just about this whole wielder of the Omnitrix thing. Stop using that title as if you don't know it wasn't meant to go to you, and Azimuth does not think you're worthy of it. Ben only gets to keep it because it would be too difficult to take it away from him. Ben literally threatens to fight Azimuth if he tried to take it. So let's recap. Kevin comes in acting humble and respectful, and this happens. Ben acts cocky and unapologetically arrogant and gets what he wants. Aye. Meanwhile, the Riddle brothers do something to Ship that basically freezes him, so now Julie can't move. I kind of just say how Julie doesn't even get to save the day here. Like, honestly, that was the least we could have gotten from this. Like, if she managed to outsmart the Riddle brothers or devise a plan to free herself and then be the one to defeat the Riddles. Kevin and Ben show up, Kevin unfreezes Julie and Ship, and then they don't even do anything. She just kind of walks to the Riddles and they run away.
You went halfway across the galaxy just to save Ship, so I know you really do care about him.
Yeah, we won't talk about the fact that he didn't treat the situation with that much delicacy and really ruined the whole thing, but anyway.
But, you know, it kind of feels like you're putting a lot of pressure on our relationship.
Shut up, Ben. The next 2 episodes single-handedly and if all else fails are quite interesting, but I'm not going to explain them in great depth. Single-handed isn't my favorite episode, but I think the premise is quite interesting. Basically, there's this guy called Sunder chasing Ben and wants the Omnitrix. He has this axe thing that chops off Ben's hand, leaving Ben in the null void and his hand in the main world. I thought this was cool, although there were times when the hand was moving and it seemed like it had a mind of its own, and I'm not really sure if Ben could control it. If All Else Fails has a hybrid antagonist in case you missed them being the villains. So apparently in the hybrid invasion plan, they created this failsafe plan in case their other one failed. An earthquake wakes this hybrid in a hibernation pod or something underground, and he initiates the plan. Why didn't he change to like the rest of the hybrid? In the end, Friday returns.
Captain Ben Tennyson!
Is just fine, and so are we. Thanks for asking.
I'm glad someone finally pointed it out, but to be honest, calling it out isn't really enough. It doesn't change the fact that almost everyone in the show will treat Kevin and Gwen like chopped liver. Like, is it so much to ask for some of the villains to send their death threats to Kevin and Gwen as well? Guys, I need to explain the place that the next episode, In Charm's Way, holds in my heart. This episode was burned into my brain. It used to give me nightmares. Little Me was very dramatic. I didn't even remember that much about this episode. I just remember that this little... I'm already getting worked up. I didn't watch H2O or Makeover Maids or whatever it's called, but the way those fans feel about Charlotte is how I feel about Charmcaster, or rather how I felt about her when watching this episode for the first time. I'd like to get out of the way that I do not remember watching a classic Ben 10 episode with her in it, and I had no idea that people shipped her with Ben. There aren't really any elements that in the Alien series. Normally when she's in it, it's a Gwen-focused episode. Anyway, Little Me was very dramatic, and I took my ships very seriously. I didn't care that Susan couldn't return to Narnia. I cared that her love with Prince Caspian had to die, and in the next movie he completely moved on. But I hadn't. Charmcaster messed up my ship. Kevin and Gwen were the original OTP, and she ruined it. I didn't remember what she did, but I remember that blonde on the beach with Kevin, and my heart began to hurt. I felt pain, and honestly, to this day, anytime I think about this episode, I think of the song Eternal Flame, and I can't listen to Eternal Flame without remembering my first heartbreak. Please don't ask me why, I really wish I could tell you. I don't even know what Eternal Flame is about, guys. So I rewatched this episode last year, literally tissues at the ready, and it made me feel even sadder, to be frank. Charmcaster wants to get revenge. She says she wants revenge against Ben and Gwen, but she mainly targets Gwen. Basically, Kevin is going through this whole "I'm a monster!" thing, and Charmcaster uses him for her plan. She pretends to be this blonde girly Caroline before manipulating him into believing that Gwen doesn't truly care about him. There was never a moment on the show where I could say for sure, okay, this is the point that Gwen and Kevin started dating. Because here, Caroline tries to kiss Kevin, and he's like, nah, I'm seeing someone.
If she's so powerful, this girlfriend of yours, how come she hasn't found a way to change you back? Maybe she figures as long as you're a monster, no other girl will be interested. If I were your girlfriend, I'd be working day and night to cure you.
Charmcaster was spreading lies in this episode. So she kisses him and it looks like he wants to pull away, but he doesn't, but that might be because she's put him in a trance. So I don't really know if he cheated on Gwen or not. We got this scene of Ben and Gwen talking where Gwen shows genuine sympathy for what happened to Kevin, but Ben's like, nah, Kevin has it good. Now he has no limit on his powers, unlike me. Kevin should stop whining about how tough he has it. Stop making this about yourself. Gosh, considering you turned him into this. I'm not letting that go. Okay, but can we talk about the gaslighting, gatekeeping girl boss that is Charmcaster? Because even when Kevin's out of the trance, he believes what Charmcaster said about Gwen not caring about him and leaving him as a monster so no other girls would want him. And he throws it at Gwen. I'm cutting out the fight scenes that Gwen and Charmcaster have because obviously in the end, Gwen wins like the queen she is. But the fight between Kevin and Gwen doesn't really get resolved. Basically, when it's all over, Gwen is understandably upset because she was accused of not caring about someone who she deeply cares for, and she storms off. Ben then tells Kevin that Gwen's been staying up reading and researching spells and different ways to cure him.
She never told me. Should she have had to?
Maybe they bring it up in the next episode? Oh no, it's Vilgax. Yay. The next episode, Ghost Town, is a Vilgax episode, but it's also a Ghost Freak episode, so no, sorry, I'm not doing this right now. It's nighttime.
Many hours later.
Okay, it's now daytime. You might be thinking, wow, at your big age, a children's cartoon is scaring you. And to that I say, yes, children's cartoons can be absolutely terrifying. I've only watched Summer Ween from Gravity Falls once in my life, and I haven't even mentioned Ko or that one episode of Mystery Incorporated. But the thing with Ghost Freak is that when I'm watching Ben 10 or even in my memories, I'm not that scared of him. But it's when it's 3 AM and I can't sleep and my brain starts opening the things that should have scared me but didn't file, that I'm wasting electricity sleeping with the lights on. In case anyone is wondering, another thing in this file is the witch from Paranorman, but really just that one line.
And we're like only 11 years old? I don't want to go to sleep. And you can't make me.
Absolutely not. So when I found out that this is a Ghost Freak episode upon my original rewatch, I watched the Ghost Freak episode from the classic series. And guys, I gotta say, watching this scene really made me think he was dead. Like he turned to ash, that's not something you just walk off. The episode opens with Vilgax going to the prison where Ghost Freak is being held. Weirdly enough, his name is just Ghost Freak. I'll talk about the alien names a little later on in the video, but I just found it weird that Ghost Freak wouldn't make a point of changing his name, considering having the word freak in your name isn't that great. Vilgax wants a secret to the Omnitrix and the knowledge to defeat Ben, because like Julie, all Vilgax's paths lead to Ben. After they introduce this bit of the team playing minigolf, but there's like a mole rat alien thing, it's not really that necessary to the episode. Vilgax arrives on Earth to ask for Ben's help.
One word. Ghost Freak.
Is that one word? He tells Ben that Ghost Freak broke out of the prison and then attacked his home planet, which is called Vilgaxia, by the way. Very creative name. Ghost Freak turned Vilgax's people into ghost minions and took over. Huh, funny. A guy who likes taking over other planets doesn't really enjoy it that much when his world is taken over. Now here was a weird thing I noticed. In the beginning of this interaction, Vilgax says Ghost Freak broke out of the Omnitrix. Then he said his whole story and Ben's like, why would I help you? Vilgax then tells Ben that it's his fault because he freed Ghost Freak from the Omnitrix, therefore his actions are Ben's responsibility. I get that Vilgax told quite a few lies in this episode, but it's just odd that no one called him out on this inconsistency. Vilgax then asks for the Omnitrix if Ben won't go and help, and it just got me thinking how silly the Omnitrix would look on Vilgax. He gets the Omnitrix in a later episode, and yeah, it does look silly on him. What, it couldn't transform to better suit him? Gwen also asks,
and how did you know that?
We are wasting time!
But Vilgax cuts her off, and I won't lie, I have no idea what she was gonna ask.
My people are not warriors like me. They are innocent women and children.
Are there no men on his world? Anyway, they agree to help him. On his planet, they're attacked by the Ghost Freak minions he'd mentioned earlier, and Vilgax shoots them with his laser eyes. But these things were once people, so has he just killed them?
Great! Even the freaks don't want me.
Guys, I can't. They sneak into Vilgax's palace and confront Ghost Freak, who's looking a little creepier than usual. Ben jumps in front of Vilgax as Ghost Freak tries to possess him, and turns into Ghost Freak. Nope to this transformation. Absolutely not. Well, that was Ben's master plan. But let's discuss how stupid it is, because he says, I've controlled Ghost Freak before. And yes, that's true, but before you lost control. In the classic series, he tried to get control over Ghost Freak, but eventually Ghost Freak had control over him. He didn't really manage to overpower him in the classic series, so it's silly that he thought it would work now, and it obviously doesn't.
Don't worry, Gwen. Ghost Freak was one of the Omnitrix originals. I've controlled him before.
Ben, are you okay?
Never felt better.
Ben Tennyson is no longer in control of his body. Ghost Freak is.
He definitely said goat. So Gwen doesn't want to fight Ghost Freak because Ben's also in there, but Vilgax doesn't seem to care.
Ben, stop it! You're hurting your friends, please! I know you're in there somewhere.
Rude. So Kevin's been knocked out, Gwen's been knocked out, and Ben's out of office. Vilgax and Ghost Freak face off, the lights begin to burn Ghost Freak, and eventually Ben gets control again.
No. Hold your applause.
But you did nothing. And having Ghost Freak back in the Omnitrix isn't really a good thing. Next thing you know, Ben's transforming without knowing all over again. Okay, I think they might have put Ghost Freak back in his prison in the end though. Gwen and Kevin are getting up, battered and bruised from the fight, and Ben says,
Aw, you guys missed the whole thing!
We saw enough.
Ben, that was really, really stupid.
Except for the part where it worked, right?
And we almost got creamed in the process. You're not in this alone. Or did you forget?
See, this just isn't fun because it really felt like they were setting up for a finale where Gwen and Kevin have had enough, and many of the people loyal to Ben are tired of him and abandon him like Asma. With Ben at his lowest, maybe we could have gotten some growth from him. But no. Kevin and Gwen are mad, but he doesn't really learn his lesson, and he moved on by the next episode. So Vilgax has this little monologue at the end that suggests a lot of this was his plan. So it wasn't confirmed really, but I think what happened was that Vilgax asked Ghost Freak for the secrets of the Omnitrix, and in exchange, Vilgax helps him escape. But Ghost Freak double crosses him and attacks his planet. I don't get why Ghost Freak would do that, but anyway, I think that's what happened. Okay, so the next episode trade-off centers on an odd duo, Kevin and Darkstar. Kevin manages to track Darkstar down and wants to put him back in the Null Void. Couple of questions here. Wasn't the deal that Darkstar is freed if he fights alongside the team in one of the worlds? And it doesn't seem like he's been a problem, so he's just chilling by himself in a theater reading a book. Turns out Darkstar purposely left a trail for Kevin to follow. I'm not sure why he was so certain that Kevin would show up without Ben and Gwen, and I don't even know why Kevin showed up without Ben and Gwen. Kevin and Michael go to this island or something to find a Dominus Librium that will restore them to their normal selves. I actually don't know what Michael's normal self would be. As in, does he naturally look like a zombie and the energy makes him look nice? Or did he look nice and then took too much energy and now he can't go back to his normal self naturally? They use this golden horn thing, and Kevin isn't just cured of the mutation, he loses his powers. And he's happy. He's like, oh boy, this is great. Did he not like his powers? Like, that wasn't made clear. I thought he just didn't like the not being able to change back thing. And apparently Michael also can't absorb energy now. This episode really made me think that Kevin and Michael were both Osmosians, but no, Michael's not an Osmosian. I still find that strange. Also, Michael just punches Kevin in the face and gives him a black eye and is like, well, have a nice day. So Kevin goes back to Ben's house to show he's been cured. He asks Gwen to see a movie with him, and he's really cocky about it. But she turns him down because she senses Darkstar when she touches him.
I can't. I've got an errand to run.
Okay, your loss.
It's his loss!
You noticed that I'm really good looking again, right?
I don't know why Kevin had to get so big-headed about all this, but anyway. Since Michael can't absorb energy on his own anymore, he uses the Librium to do it. Gwen confronts him on her own and they fight. But because Darkstar is a lot more powerful now, he ends up getting the best of her. Ben and Kevin figure out where Gwen went and try to save her, but in the process, Ben's drained of energy too. Essentially, Kevin decides to, let me see if I have this right, interrupt the flow of energy. So basically he saves Ben and Gwen, but in the process he gets mutated again. Also, he says nothing else matters as long as Gwen is safe. Very cute, very sweet, but he literally did not say anything about the fact that Ben was also being drained. He just did not care. The next episode, Busy Box, is another one that doesn't add too much to the overarching plot, but still has a pretty interesting concept. The team's been informed that there's some alien technology out there that is level 20+. For reference, the Omnitrix is level 20. I was a little confused as to why the level is that high. No other plumbers were called in. I'm not getting over the whole being children thing. They find that this level 20 tech thing is a box. When Ben gets close enough to it, it transforms into a copy of him and mimics his voice. Kevin also gets close enough and the box transforms. Now, if you were like me or anyone with an ounce of common sense, you'd think, okay, if this thing mimics what I do, maybe I shouldn't attack because then it will attack me. But I guess these plumbers really are children.
Humongosaur!
Why? Why Humongosaur? After too long of them attacking something that does not need to be attacked, Gwen finally figures out how to stop it.
Come here. Meditate with me. Meditate with me.
I get it. As long as we stay calm.
It stays calm.
I know it didn't take the team that long to work it out. Unfortunately, before they can figure out what to do next, the Riedel brothers arrive to take the box. For whatever reason, the box doesn't transform in front of the Riedels. Also, a new alien called Lone Star makes his first appearance. One of the better ones. Who wouldn't want magnet powers? This episode had an odd conclusion. This being shows up and is like, let me take that box back. It's my child's favorite toy. Let me tell you something, fellow viewers. Con of Wrath is the peak of this season. I love this episode too much. Is it because Ben is barely in it? I think it has something to do with it. But it's also the debut of one of my favorite aliens, Wrath. His powers aren't that cool. He's basically just really strong and has these claws, but he's also really angry, hence his name. Speaking of his name, he's also not very bright, which makes it fitting that Wrath is spelled incorrectly, like it's missing the W. The team is asked by this ambassador of these Egg Whites people to transport a baby, or the Tiffin, I guess, to these other aliens, the Pantophage, so that there'll be peace between the two planets. The Tiffin interferes with Ben's Omnitrix, causing him to transform into Wrath and not be able to change back. Listen, a show with Wrath as the main character and not Ben? Top tier, instantly. One thing I like about Wrath is the fact that he doesn't usually have any cringy puns and doesn't really act smug or irritating. He's got one mood and that's it. Also, like almost every time he says something, he starts it off with "let me tell you something," and it's one of the best recurring jokes in the show. Can I call that a joke? I guess it's more of a running gag. He's also one of the only aliens not voiced by D. Bradley Baker. He's voiced by John DiMaggio. You might know him as Bender from Futurama or Jake from Adventure Time. DiMaggio also has other roles in the Alien series, for example Agrigor and Colonel Rosum. On the way there, they stop somewhere for food and run into Argit, who, for whatever reason, makes a comment about Kevin's appearance. Like, maybe this is on me. Maybe I got the episode in the wrong order, but on most episode lists, Con of Wrath takes place after Simple, and Argit is in Simple and sees Kevin in his mutated form but doesn't comment on it. The Riedel brothers show up, there's a fight, I mean we haven't gotten one of those in this episode yet. Wrath takes them out. They run into the frog people from season 1 who's threatened to kill them because they don't want peace, they want problems. Like, that's literally what they say. They don't want peace between the two races because they like war. Anyway, Wrath takes them out. Then their ship is damaged.
But the good news is I found a planet near here with exactly what I need to get us going again.
What's that? Tenai?
They meet Volcanus there, and Wrath takes him out. I know it seems like I'm selling the episode short, but I'm just trying to explain why I love Wrath so much. Like, look at this. No fuss, no shenanigans or time wasting. Yeah, sometimes he provokes villains, but he's not all talk. So my favorite parts of the episode are just Wrath and the Tiffin bonding and chilling on the ship.
What is your problem? Whatever.
Before they arrive at the destination, the Tiffin's mother is like, actually, could you not give my baby away? But Wrath yells at her and is like, listen, yeah, we're already here. One of the downsides of Wrath, he's incapable of having any reason or rationality. The mom says, yeah, you're right, never mind. So they give the Tiffin to the king of the Pantophage.
There. Isn't that lovely?
Did you just eat the baby?
If that isn't the best line of the series, I don't know what is. Wrath literally drags the Tiffin out of the king's mouth and is like, okay, here's a new peace offering. Don't attack the egg whites and I won't kill you. See why I like Wrath?
Who otherwise would have...
Did you know Jarrett was gonna eat the baby?
Well, I wasn't sure exactly, but...
Never talk to me again.
Also, Ben gets mad at Kevin because Kevin admitted that he suspected the Tiffin had something to do with the Omnitrix malfunctioning. My only question is why that pissed him off. Just because he identified the problem doesn't mean he knew the solution. Ben transforms into Wrath and we get this line.
You knew? Well, I wasn't sure exactly, but...
Kevin, Wrath would like a word with you.
Let me tell you something, Kevin E11!
Please don't.
Now, I know this is probably Kevin saying please don't, but it really doesn't sound like him. I thought it could be Gwen, but the voice is still a little off. I know this is so irrelevant and we should be moving on to the next episode, but it's bothering me. Who said that line? I was gonna go on a whole rant about it, but then I realized I'm procrastinating going to the next episode because it's about Vilgax again. Yay. Okay. We can do this. The episode is Primus. We open on Vilgaxia where Vilgax's people are like, yeah, you saved us. We're not going to talk about how you killed some of us though, but yeah, we're saved. We're not going to mention how you're responsible for the whole Ghost Reek attack, but woo, freedom. Then this henchman, or whoever this dude is like, you're never satisfied. And Vilgax is like, yeah, I have the knowledge to defeat Ben Tennyson. Ghost Reek told me one thing, Primus. This is a callback to Ghost Town, by the way. There was a scene cut out from the prologue that we see in this episode, and this is what it was. One word. But can you please talk about how weird this obsession is? It's not like Vilgax is roughly the same age as Ben, therefore making his childishness a little more understandable. He's grown. He doesn't even care about Earth that much. He just hates Ben. And that's what I just can't deal with. You know that test for like writing female characters where like they have to have names and be talking about something other than a man? Yeah, I try to use that concept with Vilgax, like he needs to be talking to someone with a name and not be talking about Ben. And he failed the test time after time after time. This man says Ben every time he exhales, and at this point it just reminds you of Rebecca's obsession with Josh from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Think about it. The obsession started a long time ago. They both have a confidant who's not necessarily dissuading their obsessive tendencies. Pursuing this obsession causes them harm and turmoil while the person they're obsessing over isn't even that fazed. Vilgax, let's talk about your childhood. Was your mom really mean? Did your dad leave you? What's on your mind, Vilgax?
Revenge.
Back on Earth, the team is fighting this robot thing and Ben's watch isn't working, but let's be real, is it ever working? This time it says it needs to return to Primus. Ben gets teleported and Kevin and Gwen hold on, saying you're not teleporting without us again. Thank goodness for that. I can't do a Vilgax episode and a solo Ben episode at the same time. They teleport to Primus, which is this planet with a bright green stream and weird mosquito creatures. The Omnitrix is then like, I gotta go to the creator, and literally just flies away. I promise you the Omnitrix is the protagonist and we've just been following supporting characters for 3 seasons.
Better get used to being you. What if you never get the Omnitrix back? It's a legitimate question.
I've got to get it back. I will get it back. Without it, I'm...
just a regular guy.
Oh, he was one line away from me making a homecoming joke. We finally got to see Azimuth using the Omnitrix. I don't know how Vilgax does this, but he causes Azimuth to transform back with his lasers. I don't know if Azimuth was forced to change back, or if this just weakened Azimuth a lot more, which then caused him to change back. Vilgax also gets the Omnitrix.
Omnitrix, I am your master now. I command you. Brainstorm. Big chill.
Don't you feel silly? Vilgax finds the team and ties them up, giving Gwen and Kevin these headbands that block their powers. Vilgax goes off somewhere, I don't know where, giving the team time to talk. And Azimuth comes in to deliver some exposition.
Azimuth!
Quick, chew through our chains!
I am not a rodent.
Could have fooled me.
He explains that Primus is like the source of the Omnitrix. The green river that runs through the planet is called the Codon Stream or something, and these mosquito things collect DNA from across the universe. Vilgax still isn't able to operate the Omnitrix, and to protect Azimuth, Ben lies that only he knows how to make it work. How did Vilgax believe that? Ben and Vilgax make a deal that if Ben tells him how to use the Omnitrix, he'll let them go. Vilgax is like, okay, but Ben must die. Ben's like, okay. Firstly, what are these bargaining skills? If Vilgax was planning on killing Ben anyway, could he not just withhold that information until he gets what he needs? Anyway, Vilgax lets Ben go so he can show him how to use the Omnitrix. Ben then transforms him into goop before turning off his artificial gravity. Smart plan, I can't lie.
Who's the hero?
You are...
Everybody?
You are.
All I ask for is a little credit.
I take back my praise. Unfortunately, Ben still needs to fight Vilgax. They have this tussle before they're like dangling over the Codon Stream. Ben literally kicks him into the stream and Gwen's like, it's okay, you didn't mean to, Ben. Like you didn't mean to kill Vilgax, but yes he did. It's not like Vilgax just let go of his leg. The Codon Stream doesn't kill Vilgax, it just makes him really big. Ben transforms into way big and throws Vilgax out into space. At the end of the episode, Ben asks Azimuth if they're cool, like if Azimuth is still mad, but then the episode ends on a higher note with Azimuth saying, yeah, Ben can keep the Omnitrix. As if he had a choice to take it away. Remember, he'd already tried that in the season 2 finale. Azimuth is still quite upset about the whole hacking the Omnitrix thing, and Ben still hasn't apologized for it. In the season 3 premiere, he doesn't care about what he did, and in this episode, he's just asking if Azimuth is still mad. The next episode, Time Heals, is a Gwen-focused episode where she tries to cure Kevin by messing with time travel. A word of advice to characters: don't mess with time travel. Chances are your writers don't know how it works. Because no one knows how it works. Well, I meant that as a joke, but now I'm actually thinking about it. Because isn't it funny when people get mad at movies like Endgame for having bad time travel when there isn't really any proof that Endgame was wrong, or like Days of Future Past is wrong, or anything like that? It's all just theories, no one's right or wrong. Time travel hasn't been proven yet. Well, that was off topic. We open with a return to Lucky Girl from the classic series. Lucky Girl was this alter ego Gwen created to fight crimes essentially, although she didn't really have powers back then, so she was using this magic token thing that gave her supernatural luck. She breaks into Charmcaster's Uncle Hector's library to steal a spellbook. Again. Yeah, sorry, Gwen's spellbook isn't hers. She stole it. So every time she says something like, I still have my spellbook, I'm like, so a petty thief is in our midst. So the next day, Ben and Kevin want to go watch a game on Gwen's dad's TV. Kevin rings the doorbell and accidentally breaks it, and Gwen shows up dressed like this, and no one mentions anything. I would have said, huh Gwen, I didn't know you wear glasses. Or what's with the trench coat, Inspector Gadget, it's 30 degrees outside. Anyway, Gwen says she doesn't really care about the doorbell and that they should just go ahead with the game. Kevin then says this.
Also, your doorbell was already busted when we got here.
No, it wasn't. He broke it.
You know what? I don't really care. Go watch your game. I'll be right back.
Did you hear what she said?
That she doesn't care about the doorbell?
It was code. What that meant was, she doesn't care about me.
What? She tries to do the time travel spell and...
grow.
There's an old saying in my field. Time travel is for immortals and fools.
They have this small conversation where Paradox is essentially anticipating what she's gonna say, because I guess it's happened before, but Gwen doesn't really seem to pick up on that, so Paradox makes it crystal clear.
Trust me, Gwendolyn. Don't do this.
But she's like, okay, so no.
I have to do this.
I suppose you do. But mark my words, Gwen Tennyson. You are about to unleash forces that you can neither comprehend nor control. Toodaloo.
Now, obviously this isn't gonna go well. Characters in any form of fiction rarely time travel and then just live their best lives. Something always has to go wrong. When Gwen enters the augmented reality later on, Paradox explained to her what happened, but I don't know why he couldn't have explained it in the scene in her bedroom. Like, he says something about not interfering, but like he constantly interferes, and isn't he interfering right now? So she time travels back to the first episode of season 3, where Ben decided to ruin everything, and talks with her past self. She's also stopped time temporarily, by the way. Her past self tells her to prove that she's actually Gwen and not just an imposter.
Tell me something that only I know. Okay, fine. You're me. And by the way, yuck. You have to admit, nobody knows that but us. Overkill. You could have just told me our locker number or something.
I have to know what she said, I'm too curious. Also, time's been stopped and no one can hear them. Why did she whisper? Maybe it's like when the writers can't come up with a joke, so they write a punchline and then just start the scene from there. Maybe they just couldn't think of anything that gross that Gwen could say. Can I stop going off topic? Past Gwen then subs Kevin and Ben, in a very forceful manner, mind you, and normal Gwen returns to her timeline, only, oh no, it's been taken over. Can I just say how irritating this time travel episode cliche is? Like, I'm not mad or anything, I still really like this episode, but it's the fact that there always has to be some dystopian future kind of thing. I think one of the best antitheses of this time travel cliche is when a character creates or travels to reality better than her own, like when Tree ends up in a reality where her mother's alive in Happy Death Day 2, and one of the reasons she has to leave is because it's not her reality. The girl she's seeing in pictures and videos isn't her, and that was really interesting. Anyway, back to the dystopia cliche.
Been quite a day, hasn't it?
Would you stop doing that?
I warned you that time travel is for immortals and fools. I'm the only immortal hereabouts. You do the math.
In this timeline, Hex was taken over because, as Paradox puts it, Kevin didn't have his new abilities that he got from the mutation, therefore Hex won. But why is the sky red? Whenever villains take over in these shows, the sky turns red for sometimes unexplained reasons, as if you can't have a dictator in good weather. I was gonna list some countries as examples, but I've shared too much personal information to be making political jokes. Also, Paradox says it's because Kevin wasn't strong enough or didn't have certain skills that they lost, but even with his new abilities, he's often treated like the weakest link. Also, while Kevin and Ben could help fight Hex and or Charmcaster, at the end of the day they'll be using magic, and therefore Gwen's skill set would be the most important. Also, Gwen is dead in this world, and Kevin has been turned into one of Charmcaster's slaves. But Ben is alive. He shows up late in the episode. He's tied up and all, but it makes no sense that he's alive and Gwen's dead. There's no way she died before him. I feel that it would have made more sense if the team had a falling out from the scene in the garage, when Gwen essentially attacks them. She either begins using her powers on them a lot more to get what she wants, creating a power imbalance, or they just begin to fear her and they try to distance themselves from her. I think that maybe would have been a more compelling episode. Charmcaster and Hex can still attack, and the rift that Gwen created weakens the team, but the simple thing of Kevin's too weak without the mutation doesn't really sit right with me.
Killing me is not cool.
Are you two done talking yet? Because I'm totally gonna kill her again.
You must learn patience, my dear niece.
But not right away. First, I'm going to kill her.
You need to stop saying that.
Firstly, let's go, Gwen. Secondly, do you see why it makes no sense that Gwen's dead? So they fight, but Gwen realizes that to fix this she has to go back in time again and stop her past self from making her past self stop Kevin and Ben.
Don't listen to her. I'm from her future and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Oh, come on. How do I know you're not an imposter?
Deja vu, I just been in this place before.
In the end, Gwen erases other Gwen's memories. Everything goes back to normal, but I have no idea what happened to the other Gwen. Like, there were 3 Gwens. Did they merge? Did she stop existing? I think she also can't remember that she time traveled, so was to suffer from trying again. And she keeps Hex's book. Thief. Paradox shows up one more time.
What are you doing here?
Is something wrong?
No. Everything's fine.
What? Lastly, Ben never gets an episode where he tries to cure Kevin. This is kinda irritating because he caused the mutation, and also because he ends up being the one who cures Kevin, but it didn't seem like curing Kevin was his intention. Next episode is The Secret of Chromastone, and I don't think I was smart enough to understand this one. Ben is sick.
Okay, Ben, it's just a common cold.
There's nothing common about this cold, Gwen. It's epic.
You are completely disgusting. Use a tissue.
I was gonna wipe my hands on my pants.
That is disgusting. Carry a handkerchief. Anyway, someone called Tetrax lands on Earth. I think he's from the classic series, and he's Diamond Head, or one of them, I guess. Tetrax wants Chromastone, and I get that the situation was dire, but I don't think he needed to be as pushy as he was in this scene. Like, I get that there was limited time to explain, but bro, explain a little. Tetrax forces Ben to become Chromastone, but Ben becomes Diamond Head instead. He hadn't been Chromastone since the beginning of the season with that fight with Bulgax.
I sense Chromastone within you. Where is he?
If you'd lighten up for a second, I'd explain.
Let me explain it to him.
Can they stop fighting? Just breathe. Tetrax then basically stabs Ben and crumbles him to pieces, revealing that Chromastone was inside him all along. That came out wrong. Tetrax gives Chromastone this red diamond thing and Chromastone flies away. So finally Tetrax explains, I'm gonna do what I did in the Spider Monkey episode and read out the dialogue because I can't play the whole clip. For it was I, and I alone, Guys, who wrote this? I'm sorry, I'm not reading this out. Basically, he sold this red crystal to Vilgax, and Vilgax used it to wipe out the diamond heads. Tetrax finds out that the crystal is actually supposed to be used to revive the race of aliens because it kind of holds everyone's DNA and memory. So Chromostone is supposed to use it to bring the diamond heads back, but there was like a small window, which is why Tetrax was so desperate. Because I was enjoying the episode a little too much, Vilgax shows up. Yay! He wants that red crystal back. After a while of fighting, they hide in this place. I'm not sure where they are, but they mentioned Vilgax has super hearing. Since when? He couldn't hear them whispering behind him when they were on Primus. Anyway, Ben sneezes and Vilgax finds them.
Where is my crystal? You'll never find it.
Yeah, because that Chromostone dude took it halfway across the galaxy.
Really?
Ow! Too much information?
Guys, he's not that dumb. Vilgax then disrupts Chromostone regenerating the planet. But like, why can't Vilgax just wait for Chromostone to finish? What does he even need the crystal for? Is it that urgent? Vilgax breaks off Chromostone's crystal and is like, all the power's gone. And then tries to fly off.
I'll show you nothing! Come back and fight!
Why? Anyway, Chromostone could grow a new one, but he's too weak and just disappears. Ben then transforms into Diamond Head and finishes Chromostone's job. If Diamond Head could do it, why did Tetrax need Chromostone? He already had the crystal. Also, Chromostone is alive. I don't know where he went, but he's back now. And in the end, Tetrax gets revenge on Vilgax by giving him Ben's cold. So, how are there like 2 Chromostones? And does this mean that Chromostone has now left the Omnitrix? And wasn't the Omnitrix supposed to repopulate the extinct creatures? Why weren't the Diamond Heads repopulated? These are just a couple of questions that may never be answered. I will not be talking about the next episode Above and Beyond. It centers around the Plumber's Helpers and doesn't really include Kevin and Gwen. Ben's in it hunting down the Plumber's Helpers, but the ship they're on also malfunctions. It was a training test, however the ship malfunctioning was real. The next episode, Vendetta, is where I thought the writers were maybe doing a little too much. This episode's premise is most comparable to the Southern Raiders from Avatar. Just as Katara finds out the identity of the man who killed her mother and sets out to kill him, Kevin follows suit and sets out to kill the man? It's more of a thing, really. The thing that killed his father. I don't know why he only escaped then. Maybe he was just building up power? I don't know. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the team is fighting the Forever Knights. They tie them up and all, but then they just get in the car. Again, what happens to these criminals? Kevin says he needs to get home and mentions his mother. She's in this episode, by the way. He says he doesn't usually stay there, but his mom needed a place. Why are they writing this man like he's 30? He's 16. So where's he normally stay? Ben and Gwen are bad friends for not pursuing the topic further. Kevin gets home and the place has been trashed. Luckily, his mother wasn't in the house when it happened. She'd stepped out to get groceries.
Looks more like the place was searched.
Searched?
Look what they did.
Honey, there's something I should have told you a long time ago.
I wish I could find the words to properly express how much I hate that line, or lines along those lines. I gotta stop saying lines. Kevin asks Ben and Gwen if they've heard of an alien called Ragnarok.
What can either of you tell me about an alien creep called Ragnarok?
Never heard of him. What are you working on?
None of your business. I need to find the guy is all.
We'll help.
I didn't ask for help. I asked for information. If you don't have any, stay out of this.
Great. This again. Okay, so there's a lot about this episode that I don't really like, but I'll address it all in the end. For now, I'll just try my best to summarize. Ben and Gwen go to Max and ask him about Ragnarok. In a flashback, we meet Devon Levin, Kevin's dad.
Ship won't go any faster, Devon.
Have you tried flapping your arms?
Smash.
Also, basically the flashback shows that Devon knew where the key Ragnarok wanted was, and Kevin was killed by Ragnarok as he saved Max. Ben and Gwen find Kevin and tell him that they're gonna help him.
We're your friends, Kevin. We're not letting you go through this alone.
We're gonna help you capture this creep if it's the last thing we do.
Right. Capture.
Okay. Gwen searches Kevin's mind and figures out where the key is. They go back to his house and the key was disguised as a picture frame. Ragnarok finds him and attacks, and in my notes I wrote it's giving Lucius Malfoy from a Harry Potter sequel. I don't know, there was something a little fabulous about that kick.
Don't touch that! Silence!
So Lucius Malloy now has the key. His plan is to drain the sun's energy, by the way. Forgot to mention that. The team teleports to Ragnarok's ship because Gwen got his energy signature or something, so she can easily just teleport to wherever he is.
We'll split up and search. You go port, I'll go starboard.
Hey, who died and made you boss?
If you got a problem with it, you.
Ben, shut up. This isn't your episode and it's really not the time. Kevin tricks Ben and Gwen into entering an escape pod.
There's gotta be a way for us to get back there.
It's on autopilot to Earth. No controls, no spacesuits.
Miss Girl, look behind you. Kevin and Ragnarok face off and they end up like this, with Hex about to fall off the ship and into space, and what does Kevin do?
Please, take my hand. Save me. Please, for your father.
No. For my father.
And Ragnarok?
Didn't make it.
Okay. Let's talk about this. Okay, so firstly, not important to my issue with this episode or anything, but when did Max realize that Kevin is Devon's son? I doubt he knew in the classic series, but I don't remember there being a point where Max was like, wait a minute, Kevin's last name is Levin? It all makes sense now. And also in the beginning of season 2, Kevin says he never met his dad, but in this picture he looks old enough to remember his father vaguely, so... Another minor note is why Devon would hide the key in his family's house. Like, why not in a secure location like with the plumbers or something? I get that the first place Ragnarok looked anyway was in Devon's house, but it was still kinda odd that he'd put his family in danger like that. Okay, I'm gonna be spoiling Ocean's 8 Horrible Bosses and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and Lion King 2 to make an argument, so just in case you don't want to know about those spoilers, use the chapters to skip ahead. I'm all here for killing off irredeemable characters, but not when it conveys the wrong message. The biggest issue is the way this episode plays out. I'm gonna pull us aside from this for a moment before I inevitably compare the Southern Raiders to Vendetta and talk about two movies I've watched, Horrible Bosses and Ocean's 8. One of these movies I really liked, the other... not so much. Ocean's 8 is about a group of women led by Sandra Bullock's character who plan to steal diamonds from the Scala. You know, there's this rule in movies that if you hear the plan beforehand, it will most likely fail, and if you don't know what the plan is and it seems like things are going wrong, it was actually part of the plan the whole time. You could argue that I have no right to get mad about Ocean's 8 because it's a typical heist movie, and I get that, but I still don't love the movie. Maybe it's just all heist movies, but I don't love that they want to steal the diamonds, and then they just steal the diamonds, roll credits. Anne Hathaway joining the team doesn't really change the direction of the movie all that much. Horrible Bosses is about three friends who hate their bosses and want to kill them for different reasons, some more valid than others, because quitting isn't a viable option. It's a very silly movie where they plan to kill each other's bosses so they can exonerate themselves. After a couple of twists and turns, one boss ends up dead, his murderer, the other boss, goes to jail, and the third boss is threatened with jail. But either way, the friends were backing out of the whole kill someone plot anyway because, you know, killing someone is a lot. One of the reasons I prefer Horrible Bosses is because of that subversion. The plot didn't play out predictably. You can disagree with me here, plenty of people have. The point is that from a structural perspective in Vendetta, Kevin's plan was to kill Ragnarok, and he goes through with that plan. The audience expectations weren't subverted, and it doesn't reflect growth on Kevin's part. Okay, inevitable comparison. In the Southern Raiders, Katara makes the choice not to kill Yon-Ra, her mother's killer. It was a kid's show, you know? We can't be promoting murdering to children. Even if this wasn't a kid's show, as a writer you need to be aware of what message you're sending to the audience. I personally don't love it when main characters in movies or TV shows kill people without consequences. This is just my personal preference. I know some people don't agree. It's one of the reasons why I enjoyed Full Metal Alchemist as much as I did, because Ed and Al are very much against killing. However, one of my other favorite characters, Mustang, has killed people on the show, most notably when he killed the homunculus Celeste. However, towards the end of the series he finds out that another homunculus, Envy, was the one who killed his closest friend. What follows is a brutal scene of Roy attempting to burn Envy alive essentially before he's urged to stop. It was very important that Roy didn't kill Envy. He killed Lust before because she needed to be stopped, but he wanted to kill Envy out of vengeance and hatred, which isn't good. The issue here wasn't Envy dying or being killed, he dies anyway. The issue is that it couldn't be Mustang who takes his life. Back to A-Force. Kevin did need to stop Ragnarok, yes, but there are other ways. I think the best way they could have resolved this plot is if they did something similar to Zira's death in Lion King 2, where she basically dies but not really at the hands of our main character, Kiara. It's a similar situation to Kevin in that Zira, the main protagonist, is hanging off a cliff or something. Kiara tries to help her, but she falls and dies. In this situation, Zira was killed off, but Kiara didn't have to be a murderer. It would have worked better if we'd gotten a moment where Kevin realizes if he kills Ragnarok, if Ragnarok's death is on his hands, he's just like Ragnarok, a monster just like him. We could have gotten a moment where he did try help Ragnarok not die, and maybe Ragnarok tries to turn the tables on him and attack, but loses his balance in the process, falling to his death. This could work because I won't lie, I don't want someone who murdered such a beautiful man to become a recurring villain on the show, but I don't want one of my favorite characters to be the reason that doesn't happen. They also just move on from this, we don't really come back to it at all. Later on, Plummer says something like they're not supposed to take justice into their own hands, and there's no parallel to what Kevin did. Like, if he did this but then had to spend time redeeming himself for it, that's a different story. All the way in UA, Kevin mentioned something about wanting something so badly for so long and it doesn't fill the void. We'll get there, we will. It's just that line is the only thing that I could argue is close to bringing this event back, but it wasn't really conveyed well. I really want to call this whole episode a CEJ event for the reason that it's not really brought up again. Okay, A-Force series finale, let's go.
Azimuth?
What is it, my axe? I'm trying to think.
I have updated information on the break-in last night.
Don't pause for suspense, tell me.
Someone didn't have his morning cup of coffee, jeez. Also, why does this woman speak like a robot? It's kinda weird. Basically, the Ultimatrix has been stolen by Albedo, who again, shame, just wants to cure himself. He teams up with Vilgax to take the Omnitrix.
Admit it, Albedo. We need each other.
No. I need the Omnitrix, and you want it. That's a bad basis for an alliance.
I don't want the Omnitrix anymore. I just want to kill Ben Tennyson.
You see, it's not passing fascination now. It's obsession. But like on a real note, it's starting to get sad. Like, get a life, bro. He's a literal child. Anyway, the team is in space facing off against this crab robot thing. Ben's held up in another room with this thing on his Omnitrix that stops him from transforming.
You should be more careful.
What for? I always win anyway.
I'm getting tired of constantly commenting on Ben's attitude. Ben swipes the key from Crab and unlocks his Omnitrix, and they enter an asteroid field. Ben tells Gwen and Kevin to get back to ship. Then Ben's like, oh, I'm gonna do something and it's gonna be super cool, and tries to laser away a giant asteroid but doesn't go too well and Crab's ship is destroyed. Ben feels bad since he thinks he's killed Crab, but Gwen and Kevin rescued him anyway. Funny how they care about the life of a robot villain but literally killed off another villain in the previous episode. Gwen just wants Ben to admit that he's a little reckless sometimes.
And what have we learned?
If we hurry, I can still get home for the Sumo Slammers Marathon!
I think I reached my Ben capacity like 30 episodes ago and now I'm just torturing myself. Kevin has some downtime and watches some TV with Ben.
This isn't the best one to start with. It's not Sumo Slammers Classic. It's Sumo Slammers Hero Generation.
Yeah, I don't really care.
It's a sequel to the original show, but they kinda messed it up. It's like 5 years later and the bad guy, Kenko, has teamed up with the hero, Ishiyama. It's not very realistic, is all I'm saying.
The Sumo Slammers explanation is pretty funny considering A-Force was supposed to be called Hero Generation. But this is what I was saying. Kevin seemed really excited in Season 3, Episode 1, but then here he literally leaves because he's so uninvested. He leaves Ben's house and is then attacked by Albedo and taken away.
What took you so long? Surely it wasn't difficult to defeat Levin.
I stopped for chili fries. I've acquired a human weakness for the delicacy.
Firstly, rude. Kevin put up a good fight. Secondly, where was Albedo keeping those chili fries? I knew men's pockets were good, but I didn't know they were that good. Vilgax goes on to say that every time Ben's beaten them, he couldn't have done it without Gwen and Kevin. I don't think that's extremely factual. Gwen discovers the car crash Kevin was caught in earlier. She also calls him her boyfriend. So cute, but I'm focusing on the wrong details. She realizes Diamond Head had something to do with it since she found the Tate Knight. I don't know what it is about her posture here, but it's unsettling. Albedo attacks her as Swampfire, and let's remember that Swampfire has Sleepy Gas abilities. Albedo is supposed to also get Max, but Max escapes and warns Ben. Albedo somehow broadcasts himself to Ben's TV and shows him that he has Gwen and Kevin. He also tells Ben that if he wants to see them alive, he should hurry. Max tells him not to rush into things and they should wait to call the Plumber's kids to Earth to make a plan from there. That's smart, yeah, but Albedo literally just said that there was limited time. But either way, Ben sneaks off while Max is talking. He meets Albedo and Albedo transforms into Humongosaur. So Ben also transforms into Humongosaur. This isn't deep, but normally when Ben transforms into Humongosaur, you see his ribs expand, but they've changed it, now his face distorts. Maybe they've used this on the show before. To be fair, I don't really pay attention to the transformation scenes. Also, why didn't Ben transform into Waybig? It's like, imagine if in Rock, Paper, Scissors someone lets you decide after them, and when they pick scissors, you pick scissors too instead of rock. Now the Ultimatrix can evolve aliens into their ultimate form. We see Ultimate Humongosaur, who, let's just face it, is just big. Okay, fine, he has missiles, but still.
I've beaten tougher guys than you. Really? When? For starters, how about now?
What? Is Albedo tougher than himself? Gwen and Kevin are tied off, but there isn't any headband blocking their powers. That had better not be normal rope because Gwen has laser eyes and Kevin is strong enough to break free and has scissor hands. Vilgax then shows up and suddenly has his whole army with him. Don't know where that army was hiding. Ben takes off his Omnitrix and gives it to Vilgax in exchange for Gwen and Kevin's life. Oh, this is the end of part 1, by the way. Also, Julie gets a few seconds of screen time in this episode, but she gets no lines.
You've won so many battles, but the war is mine. Bow down before me.
Oh my gosh, could you just kill him and move on? Max swoops in and shoots some green fireballs, freeing Kevin and Gwen. Kevin has his armor, but what about Gwen? How did the blast not hurt her? Max gives Gwen her old spellbook, or rather the spellbook she stole, and she uses it to teleport them away. Pay attention to the fact that Gwen is not wiped out from this teleportation spell. Vilgax goes back on his deal with Albedo and keeps the Omnitrix for himself. This Nat watch is not matching the theme of Vilgax's outfit, and it's not customizing to suit him because, as I will keep repeating, main character. I guess it gets bigger, but that doesn't really solve the problem. Also, it's really mean that Vilgax won't just let Albedo change back. That's literally all he's asking for. I don't think I can even count him as a villain. I actually feel bad for him. He deserves better.
My bioids are synthetic soldiers with blank DNA, all synced to the Omnitrix. Humongosaur!
I still don't get it. I'm just too lazy to ask questions that will never be answered.
Humongosaur! 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 Humongosaur!
Guys, they keep saying Humongosaur, it's the most irritating thing in the world. Also, Humongosaur is really one of the most useless aliens, and this thing of transforming robots as well is all fine and good, but do they all need to be the same alien? Wouldn't it be more powerful if you could make like 10 of them into one of each alien or something? Anyway, all the Humongosaurs attack Albedo. Okay. Albedo just needs to transform into something else and fly away, but he doesn't. Max left some cameras or something on the scene so that they could watch what's happening.
Bad day to be him.
Worst day to be me.
Sir, the man is dying. Ben really just whines a lot for the next couple of minutes.
What's the plan, Tennyson?
Plan? Haven't you been paying attention? It's hopeless. Vilgax has an army with all of my powers. I lost the Omnitrix.
But you still have your whiny voice.
Stop this thing, Grandpa! Stop it!
You don't understand how much I laughed when I first watched this scene. Like, this whiny voice came from the back of the van telling Max to stop, and he's just like, okay then, and Ben runs off into the rain to cry. There's this mini beef between Ben and Kevin that felt a little manufactured. Gwen says,
"He never quit on you."
Yeah, don't worry, he will soon. But either way, it's squashed in like 2 lines and could easily be removed. Ben's moping in the forest like an emo, and Gwen comes to him and gives a speech. I think considering Gwen and Ben started off the show on good terms, whereas things were a little rocky between Ben and Kevin, it would have been more satisfying if Kevin was the one to give Ben a pep talk to show their growth in their relationship. Gwen tells Ben that it wasn't about the Omnitrix, it was about him. And I get that, yes, but at the same time, while I hate to agree with Ben, it's about the Omnitrix. At the end of the day, Ben is just a guy. I wouldn't really praise him for his intellect or strategic ability. She then says that they're depending on him, and the whole world is depending on him. But to me, it felt like an unfair amount of pressure to put on him. Just because Ben's the main character doesn't mean he has to be the one to come up with the plans. This could also show some character growth from Ben and learning the importance of relying on others from time to time. Ben then cries for Azimuth, and this is when I started to think that Azimuth might be God. Like before, maybe you could speculate that Azimuth is listening in through the Omnitrix, which is pretty creepy if you think about it, but Ben isn't wearing his Omnitrix. So is Azimuth just like always listening, or is it like an invoke my name 3 times kind of thing? Azimuth explains that Max was originally supposed to get the Omnitrix, but Max requested that Ben keeps the Omnitrix. Azimuth says he's seen Ben grow. When? I know it's petty to keep bringing this up, but Ben still doesn't apologize. Azimuth and Ben kind of make amends again, like there's no bad blood. But he still didn't apologize for hacking the Omnitrix. Maybe he implied it, but saying sorry goes a long way. Ben goes back to the Rust Bucket and is like, I have a plan. Meanwhile, on Vilgax's ship, Albedo is still alive? Why? I thought the Humongosaurs killed him. But even if he somehow survived that, why does Vilgax need him alive? The team plus Max teleport in, then Vilgax calls Kevin a pet.
The Tennyson family and their pet juvenile delinquent.
Juvenile? I'm gonna be 18 a year from next Tuesday.
You're focusing on the wrong part of the insult. Also, that's a very roundabout way to say he's almost 17 and prove that he is a juvenile.
You're going to give me the Omnitrix of your own free will.
Why would I do that?
So you don't blow up. Omnitrix, command function override, code 10.
Override accepted. Voice command activated.
What are you?
Omnitrix, self-destruct in 30 seconds.
Okay, in all fairness, that was a smart idea. And in the process of destroying the Omnitrix, Kevin is cured. I wish it had been made clear that maybe Ben knew for a fact this would cure Kevin and that's what made him want to go through with it. Like if he'd been debating whether or not to destroy it because he would have nothing afterwards and he realizes it could cure Kevin and he's like, okay, there's nothing left to think about. This is my mess. I'll sacrifice what I have to clean it up.
Let me show you.
It was a nice little moment. Why'd they have to do that?
Aw, their first kiss. Cute, but why on earth is Max just watching? Like, bro, turn around. I swear, at my wedding, my husband and I will fist bump and leave it at that. I don't need my family seeing things. Kevin makes his face after the kiss. Okay then. Vilgax decides, if I can't win, let me just destroy their hometown. Sir, get alive.
I can't conquer the Earth today, but I can punish you. The ship is locked on collision course with Bellwood.
This ship has a fusion drive. When it hits...
The explosion will destroy our hometown and everything else for 100 miles.
Everyone outside the US isn't panicking because they're good. Let me add this to my why I hate Vilgax list. In this episode in particular, he's just the villain for the sake of being a villain, and I hate those kinds of villains. He doesn't have a plan in sight. He's just like, I wonder what Ben's doing today. It also occurred to me that Albedo's appearance issue was also linked to the Omnitrix, so I'm not sure why he wasn't cured. Ben tells Albedo to give up the Omnitrix and threatens him with the self-destruct thing. But Albedo isn't as strong as Vilgax, who was temporarily knocked out from the blast. Albedo could literally die from the self-destruct. Ben gets the Ultimatrix and transformed into Swampfire and then Ultimate Swampfire. Let's get one thing straight. Swampfire is hot, Ultimate is not. Gwen and Max are trying to steer the ship away from Bellwood, and Max tells her to aim for the ocean. Gwen asks where the ocean is, and Max says aim for the blue part. While Gwen asks where the ocean is, she's not that dumb. They land in the ocean and the ship begins to sink. Next, Gwen and Kevin escape, but Vilgax transforms into an octopus and drags Ben down. Also, Vilgax says water is his element, and I guess his people are like octopus people, so like, why didn't we see that much water on his planet? The fusion drive or something in Vilgax's ship explodes.
Ben.
But you know he's not dead. So no one's gonna mention Kevin in his underwear? Like Ben can't give him his jacket or something?
What happened to Vilgax?
I didn't see him get out, but he survived worse.
He could come back.
If he ever does, it's hero time.
No, no, no. Can you go find that body? I'm not playing. Don't tease him coming back in Ultimate Alien like... Guess who the final boss of Ultimate Alien will be? Like, guys, you don't understand how hard it is to have to subject myself to this because I've committed to the video. But like, every time I see Vilgax on screen, I take a 1 month break from writing the script, and then I just have to work overtime to catch up. Like, yeah, I'm the one creating these problems for myself, but it still sucks. In terms of Ben's arc, I don't know. I guess he had to destroy the Omnitrix. Part of his plan was to get the Ultimatrix afterwards, so it didn't really feel like that much of a sacrifice. Last fanfiction of the video, but this is an important one. I think Alien Force should have ended with the Omnitrix destroyed and Ben left without a watch. I think that for at least an episode of UA, Ben continues to be a plumber without the watch. Like I said, not all plumbers have powers, and as we see in UA, they're sometimes discouraged from using their powers. People always say Max was one of the greatest plumbers, and he didn't have powers. I think it's important for Ben to grow as Ben and not the wielder of the Omnitrix, to see him lead the team without relying on the watch. And I'm not asking for this to go on for too long. In the pilot of A-Force, we saw Ben have to cope with aliens without his watch, and he managed. It would have been cool if we saw this happening at the beginning of UA before Ben finds the Ultimatrix. But anyway, that was Ben 10 Alien Force. Again, I nitpick a lot, but I actually really like it. In fact, after rewatching Ultimate Alien again, I think Alien Force was better, but only slightly. We're about to move on to Ultimate Alien, but no we're not. Sorry. I really didn't want to have to do this, but I'm going to have to split the video. My plan is to make a really long video and maybe have it be like 3 hours long, but I think I miscalculated. I'll take this as a blessing in disguise because splitting the videos makes my life a little easier, and I can use the feedback from this video to improve the UA video. Just to let you know, the UA script should be better than A-Force, mainly because instead of rewatching an episode, writing out of context notes, and trying to write an essay from that weeks later, I wrote the UA script as I watched these episodes, so hopefully there won't be as many errors. Please let me know what you liked and what you didn't. I think I make better points and arguments in the UA script, and I wouldn't want that to be overshadowed by any poor editing choices. I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, I'm just a squirrel, and thank you for watching. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Just before I get into anything else, I just want to apologize for a couple of things. Firstly, for the different personalities my voice has throughout the video. I didn't record it all in one sitting, and I didn't record it all in the exact same way, which is also why the quality isn't as consistent as I would have liked it to be. I also want to apologize if there are any like text errors, like spelling errors or like minor grammar mistakes, just because I tried to fix as many as I could, but at some point when like I exported the video and I noticed like maybe like a small mistake, it's just too late to go back to fix that small insignificant error. There is a picture, I think, of a file that I used where there's some text in it and a comma is used incorrectly, and honestly that comma has been haunting me, but it's just too much work to fix it, mainly just because my laptop has really just been going through the most. I have put this laptop through hell these past few weeks especially, so every time I try to do like a huge amount of editing, my laptop just can't take it. So exporting and opening up projects again just takes too long, and so I'm not gonna go all the way back for one picture. Whenever like I've been with like a group of friends or something, we're all talking about you know, like childhood shows and everything, everyone always talks about like Disney Channel shows, and I don't know if there's anyone else out there who's like me growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch Disney Channel. I don't really completely understand why, because I was allowed to watch like Nickelodeon, but Disney Channel was like a no-no. Mainly it's like the live action shows. Watching cartoons on Disney Channel wasn't that bad, but like Hannah Montana was the Waverly Place, it was absolutely not, like I couldn't watch those ones. I mean, obviously I've watched some episodes here and there, but like I didn't grow up on it. So I was mainly like watching like cartoons throughout my childhood, mainly on Cartoon Network. But yeah, that's like why of all the shows to do like a deep dive on, or like a summary or a rewatch, for like nostalgia purposes, a cartoon would have to be it for me. So I was actually like contemplating, like if this video does well, if I should try this again with another cartoon. I was thinking along the lines of maybe The Secret Saturdays or Witch, if anyone still remembers Witch. I was gravitating more towards The Secret Saturdays because that's a show that I actually remember watching. With Witch, I think I watched it when I was like so young, and it's mainly my older sister who remembers it. I barely remember the show, honestly. But then I watched some episodes of The Secret Saturdays and it just wasn't, I mean, I don't know, maybe I have to stick with it. I just wasn't really feeling it last year when I was, around the time I was binging Ben 10 as well. So just, I don't know, let me know if you'd be interested in that. And yes, yeah, they're just like shows. Like there's like a Lab Rats video that was posted, the ones from Mike Smike and Jenny Nicholson about Pretty Little Liars, Glee, Vampire Diaries. Those videos are really nice for me just because I've always wanted to watch those shows, but I either couldn't find the time to, like for Vampire Diaries, I just don't have the energy for that life. Honestly, like I do not have the energy for Vampire Diaries, but I've always wanted to know what happens. Even in a show like Lab Rats, I'm actually really curious to know what happens, but at this point in my life, I feel like I've outgrown watching Lab Rats, so I don't see myself ever like rewatching the whole series, which is why I think his name is Kian Carlisle. Yes, that's why that video, I really did enjoy it. So I think that's what I was trying to do with Ben 10. Like, if there's anyone else out there who wanted to watch Ben 10, who wanted to know what happened, I think, but never really got the chance to watch it as a kid that much, and now just feels like they're too old to watch the whole show from start to finish, that's kind of like the perfect video, which is because I had the energy for Ben 10. I'm not really sure what draws me to the show so much. Like, I know I said Gwen, Kevin, all that, but like, I can't really explain it. I just really like the show. And like I said, I know nitpicky, I know it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, but honestly, that's just like the critical mode in me. But honestly, I really do like the show. The cracks do start to show in Ultimate Alien. We'll get there when we get there, but I was never bored. I was always interested. It was always an interesting show. Some moments could be very infuriating. Some moments could just be very but for the most part, yeah, it was nice. I'm very glad that I decided to split the videos, because honestly, I can't believe Sono's already turned out to be 3 hours long. I had thought it would be like an hour, and then the Ultimate Alien side maybe 2 hours at most. Like, I really thought the whole thing would take 3 hours to make, but nope, I was wrong. So, but it's really a good thing, just because, wow, if I had included Ultimate Alien, it would have taken so long and I would have been so tired. Although it's actually just funny to think, I think I decided to split the videos around like mid-June, And then I was like, yeah, I'll split the videos here and then post the first part at the end of June and wait maybe like a week and then post the next part after 2 weeks. Like, I really thought that it was just going to take me a week to finish the whole thing. Like, wow. I cannot tell you for sure when the Ultimate Alien video will be out, especially because I think editing UA is going to take a lot longer, mainly because of what happens at the end of season 1, but then also just the fact that season 2 has like 32 episodes and I spoke about all of them. Not all of them, like I said, not all of them get like an in-depth recap, but like, it was still a lot. But I can't say anything because I'm starting university soon and I have no idea what my workload is going to be like, what anything is going to be like really, so I can't say for sure that I'll post it at the end of the year, but I'll post it when I can. I will post it. I have to post it. I've spent too much time working on it for me not to post it. But anyway, I really want to say that I had fun making this video. I really wanted to. Rewatching the episodes was fun. Writing the script was fun. Rereading the script was fun. Recording it wasn't that fun just because my voice got so tired. Hence the reason for the many different personalities throughout the recording process. I would like be mid-sentence and say, no, I'm done recording, and I just wouldn't speak for the rest of the day. Editing was fun for the most part when I had a show to watch as I edited. I was watching The Good Doctor, and then I finished season 3, and I wasn't having fun anymore. I got very upset. Like, in fact, the next day I didn't even work. I was in mourning. But anyway, yes, so please let me know what you liked, what you did not like. Let me know what you like about Ben 10 in general, which points you agreed with that I've made, and if there's another cartoon that I should make a video on like this, again, just let me know. Yeah, so just like, comment, subscribe, all that. And until I post another video, I am just a squirrel, and thank you for watching.